you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
SICK, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. SICK, 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 SICK.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
SICK, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
SICK, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. SICK, 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 SICK.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs!
And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TB. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, June 28th. It is 1 minute past 7 p.m. Eastern in Montreal. It is the NHL Draft 2023, and they are in Nashville. I am in the comfort of my beautiful podcast studio in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I find it's going to be a lot more convenient doing it from here. Had I been on the floor or close to the floor, there's a lot more noise, arena noise. We don't know how it's going to be able to broadcast. You have to get a hold of people. It's a little bit different. It's going to run smoothly. I am certain of that. And I want to thank all of our partners and our sponsors for making it possible. I'm going to start with Energy Transportation Group. Named by the Financial Times as one of America's fastest growing companies in 2023 and have been recognized by the Globe and Mail as a top growing Canadian company for 2 years in a row. They work with some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies providing end-to-end logistics services. Join a winning team and check out Energy's career page for available opportunities. Those are my guys, Sean Girard, Mike Cinquino, and I'm not going to forget David Grassi, and neither should you. Also brought to you in part by Playground, your premier gaming destination. Playground Summer Million is the must-play poker event of the season, featuring 10 championship ring events, $1 million in guaranteed prize pools, and a $500,000 guaranteed main event located just over the Mercier Bridge, only minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground. Also brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards, La Bittt Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bittt Tibi, embrace your true nature. We have a very, very busy show lined up today, and it looks like Kyle Woodlief is going to join us right off the top. And so Kyle will join us any minute now. But if I can, Shane Gaumont and Master Control, why don't you bring up the chart of who we have lined up on the show today so everyone can actually see it instead of just hearing me talk about it. Can we do that? We can't do that. Okay, not right now. Thank God I said it was going to go smooth. All right, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to be joined by Kyle Woodlief of the Red Line Report. He's going to join us in the first hour. Byron Bedard is going to join us after that at the top of the 8 o'clock hour from Hockey Prospecting. He's going to join us. We're going to get reaction from Marc-André Perreault of TVA Sport, who's the Habs reporter for TVA Sport. He's going to join us just past 8 o'clock. And then, of course, at around 8:30 or so, Grant McCagg of Recruits and Recruits.ca will join us. And Tony Ferrari, who does NHL draft and prospects for the Hockey News, will join us as well. And then Grant will join us to wrap it up. Of course, all you Montreal Canadiens fans are watching right now, and you're waiting to hear who the Montreal Canadiens are going to pick with pick number 5. And that is, are they going to select with pick number 5? Because, of course, there's different options here that can happen. Folks, either they, A, pick with the 5th pick, B, make a trade to try and improve their ranking, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often. I think it happened once in the last 30 years that a team that had a top 5 pick actually moved up. It doesn't happen very often, folks. I wouldn't count on that. B, they could obviously drop back in the draft and trade pick number 5 and end up maybe getting 2 picks in the first round, or they can trade the pick for immediate help right away. And we are minutes away from finding out what the Montreal Canadiens are going to do. Let me just see if I can get a hold, actually, of Kyle Woodlief. Hold on a second here, because he should be joining us any second now. And I'm going to be trying to get a hold of him. Hold on a second. All right. Okay. Just a reminder. All right. Okay. Kyle should be joining me any minute, and Shane Gaumont is at Master Control, and he's going to try and get a hold of him. There we go. All right. Okay. And all right. Here's some latest developments for you folks. Kevin Weeks of the NHL Network. Kevin Weeks reporting that don't be surprised if the Montreal Canadiens try and go for a goalie. And he talked about the Nashville Predators, and he talked about one of their prospects. Well, of course, when I think Nashville Predators and I think goalie prospects, well, I think of a couple of them. But the one prospect that comes to mind more than anyone else is a goalie that was drafted round 1, 11th overall back in 2020. And I'm talking about Yaroslav Askarov. Yaroslav Askarov, the 21-year-old, 6'3", under 200 pounds. He played only one game with the Nashville Predators this year. He played several for the Milwaukee Admirals in the American Hockey League, where he played 48 games in the regular season, had a goals against average of .269, a save percentage of .911. In the playoffs, he played 12 games. He had a goals against average of 2.70, so consistent in that regard. His save percentage dipped a little bit to .903. So that's something that we should keep our eye on. Of course, other things to keep our eye on is going to be Michkov and what's going to happen. A lot of people are saying that this is where it's going to get interesting, that the Montreal Canadiens hold the keys to the draft. Everyone knows what's going to happen with pick number 1 and the Chicago Blackhawks. They're going to draft Connor Bedard, obviously, a generational talent. But then there's so many other names. There's Adam Fantilli, who for the most part should go number 2. The centerman should. Leo Carlson is another centerman who can play wing, who might go 3. He might go 4. If he doesn't go 3, 3 is going to go Will Smith. You would think the American centerman that Kent Hughes knows very well, him and his family. He used to coach him many, many years ago. And of course, we know that Kent Hughes knows, and Marty St. Louis and Jeff Gordon, they especially know the American players well, especially the players that play out of the Boston area and play some of their collegiate hockey there or thereabouts. So we'll keep an eye on that. What you have to know, though, is that Mike Grier, the general manager, once again, so pick number 1 is Chicago. Pick number 2 is Anaheim. Pick number 3 is Columbus. Pick number 4 is San Jose. Mike Grier, the general manager of the San Jose Sharks, he used to go to St. Sebastian's. You know who else went to St. Sebastian's? Jaden Struble of the Montreal Canadiens. You know who else goes to St. Sebastian's? Well, Will Smith goes to St. Sebastian's. So Mike Grier, an American himself, you would think knows a thing or two about Will Smith from St. Sebastian. So if Will Smith is available at number 4, because I'm going to tell you right now that if Will Smith is available at number 5, the Canadiens are going to pick Will Smith with the 5th pick. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that, all right? But if Will Smith is available at 4, does Mike Grier, who went to St. Sebastian's, the same school as Will Smith, an American himself, knows him like the back of his hand, is he going to pass on Will Smith? You would doubt it. But if he does, is he the one guy who is going to take a chance on Matvei Michkov? Matvei Michkov, based on all accounts, based on everyone we talked to, the second top pure talent in this draft after Connor Bedard. But of course, with everything happening in Russia over the last year or so, it changes the dynamic of how this draft is going to go. This would have happened several years ago. Michkov is going number 2 behind Bedard. Now, the fact that Michkov has a contract in the KHL, which is for another 3 seasons, chances are you cannot get out of that contract. You have to respect it, with the threat and the danger of actually he ends up re-signing another contract. We know that Russian players are being dissuaded from leaving Russia to make their way to the National Hockey League. And I'm going to give you an example here, okay? So let's say Michkov is playing for SKA in the KHL. And, he says, I want to make my way to the National Hockey League. Well, in his last year, guess what? They say, oh, yeah, really? You want to make your way to the National Hockey League next year? Guess what? You're riding the bench. Or you're a healthy scratch. You're not playing. Then all of a sudden, the player doesn't want to put his career on hold. And what if they say you have to extend your contract here, or else you're going to sit on the bench or be a healthy scratch all season? Then he probably ends up signing an extension. Those are the dangers. Those are the risks to take. Are you willing to take the risk for a player that is a pure talent in this draft. We see him do things with the puck that are absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. We're going to have to wait and see. What we have been told, at one point, it looked like Michkov was slipping in the draft, and a lot of people were saying, you know what, Michkov is probably going to go pick number 8 to the Washington Capitals. Some people were saying that. But then now over the last couple of days, people are saying, no, you know what? He's not going to go 8 to the Capitals. And the Capitals, of course, have a Russian influences with Ovechkin there and Backstrom and Kuznetsov. And you would think that that's who they would use to try and get Michkov to come over. But now we're hearing he might go before 8. So if he goes 4 to San Jose and they decide, you know what, we're going to go after him, the Canadiens will draft either Will Smith or Leo Carlsson, whichever one is available. One will be available if Michkov goes number 4. If Michkov doesn't go 4 and he's available with the 5th pick, what do the Montreal Canadiens do? At that point, do they take Matvei Michkov? Let's hear from Kent Hughes on Matvei Michkov.
Well, I listen, now that we know where we're picking, if we had won the lottery and we were picking absolutely number 1, then we probably wouldn't have had to dig into it in the same level of detail. And we're going to do that and try to understand as best we can what those obstacles are. And I think a lot of it is going to be difficult to predict. But I think it's going to be, for any team, it's kind of a risk, a risk reward assessment for any team that is considering drafting him. And I would imagine, as I said about positional preference, that it would be a tiebreaker. So for somebody else, I have to believe, if you're considering Michkov and another player that you deem very, very comparable in terms of talent and potential, then those factors are probably going to weigh him down. But we're not there yet where I can say to you that we believe there are others equal to him, or that he's equal to them for that matter.
All right. You know what? Let me hear now from Kyle Woodlief of the Red Line Report. I bring him in. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Tony. How you doing tonight?
Very well. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. It's kind of crazy, actually, what happened to Kyle. So let me explain a story here for you if I can. Kyle is a former scout with the Nashville Predators. He left the Predators many, many years ago and started up his own independent scouting agency called the Red Line Report. Before a lot of these TV outlets and started actually having their own people in-house to give their picks, for the longest time, they based themselves on picks from the Red Line Report. As a matter of fact, you will still hear some of them reference the Red Line Report every now and then. It's just that a lot of them now are in the habit of having their own guy internally, and that person ends up, of course, representing that station. And so they try and keep things in-house. But believe me when I tell you that Kyle Woodlief, for the longest time, has been the reference point for a lot of teams who actually consult with him prior to the draft. A lot of outlets consult with him. A lot of independent scouts consult with him. Kyle has a team. He has a team of 5. They rented a place in Nashville, and 3 of them had their flight canceled, very unfortunately. If you know what's going on with the airports around the world, you would know that it's not guaranteed that they're going to be able to find you another flight. They tried all avenues for Kyle out of this city, that city, this city, that city. He got back to me. He goes, Tony, you can't believe it. They tried everything. I couldn't get a flight. So, unfortunate for Kyle. This is very fortunate for us, okay? Folks, this is a privilege to have Kyle Woodlief with us tonight, because the second I found out his flight was canceled, I said, Kyle, you're coming on with me, and we are going on for the first hour. So here he is. Kyle, welcome to the Sick Podcast. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you, Tony. I have to say, it's the other than the 2 pandemic drafts that were held remotely, it's the first time that I have not physically been at the draft since 1990.
Wow. Okay, that's something. We want to bring up the Chicago Blackhawks are on the clock with about 2:20 to go before they go up and probably announce the obvious. Actually, they will announce the obvious, which will be Connor Bedard. I'd like to bring up our chart that we have, okay? So the collaborators who will join us tonight, the scouts who will join us tonight, we have a chart. Can we bring it up, Shane Gaumont, if we can? Of the top 32 picks. The top 32 picks. There you have it. Kyle Woodlief, Connor Bedard, this is you, Matvei Michkov, Leo Carlsson, Adam Fantilli, Will Smith, Sandin Pilika, Zach Benson, Colby Barlow, Matthew Wood, Dalibor Dvorsky, Ryan Leonard at 11, Gabe Perreault, Edward Saleh, Andrew Crystal, and Nate Danielson, Mikhail Guliev, Samuel Honzek, Otto Stenberg, Michael Rabel, and David Reinbacher. These are your top 20 picks, your top 20 picks. So, Kyle, based on this, I'm going to ask you a question that is probably the obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And it's going to be about Matvei Michkov. But without further ado, Kyle Davidson is up to the microphone. I think he's going to state the obvious right now and make Connor Bedard the first pick of the 2023 draft. We're talking about Kyle, before we get to Michkov, talk to me about Bedard, all right? The term generational talent comes around every now and then. It was thrown out there for Sidney Crosby. It was thrown out there for Alex Ovechkin. It was thrown out there with Connor McDavid. Crosby, Ovechkin, McDavid. Is Connor Bedard in this company? Is he a generational talent?
Yeah, I mean, superlatives are thrown around much too easily these days, but certainly Bedard is the best, the most dynamic talent to come along since Connor McDavid in 2015. Generational talent, I don't think in this case it's an overstatement. I think Bedard is going to be a guy who will, win Hart trophies in the NHL before his career is over. He'll win scoring titles. He'll regularly be up over 100 points. He'll have seasons of 50 goals or more. So generational talent, yes.
It is official. It is official. Connor Bedard just announced as the first pick by the Chicago Blackhawks. Kyle, we were told he's a centerman who can play wing. At the World Juniors, he was younger than every player on the other team. It didn't get in his way of picking up points. As a matter of fact, he scored more goals and picked up more points than anyone else. He leads all players who have played for Hockey Canada at the World Juniors in goals and assist points. And he actually has 2 more years of eligibility if he actually wanted to play on that team. A lot of his great moments came on the wing. At the National Hockey League level, how does his game translate? When all is said and done, will Connor Bedard be a centerman or a winger?
He could play center, but I would prefer to see him on right wing. He's as good a playmaker as he is. He's an even better pure shooter. I think if you put him with a center who can be creative, be a little imaginative, and match wits with Bedard, which is not easy. But if you can get him someone who can pair up with him as a creative centerman and get him the puck, his shot is already world class. It's one of the top 5 shots on the planet right now at the age of 18. So I think he'd be better off as a pure goal scorer on the wing.
So Adam Fantilli is a slam dunk centerman. We convene, correct?
Yes, he is.
Will Smith is a slam dunk centerman. We convene, correct?
Yes.
Leo Carlsson, we've been told, can play both. When all is said and done, is he a centerman or a winger?
Center, definitely.
Perfect. Having said all that, and you know that centers hold a lot of value. The fact that a player that you deem will be better off playing at the right wing position is a slam dunk number 1 over number 2, number 3, and number 4, for the most part, who are all centers. How big is the gap between Connor Bedard and everyone else in this draft?
It's certainly bigger than those 3. I would say the same thing about Michkov, who's also a winger. I mean, I think the gap between the top 2 is fairly large down to the next 3. So I would have Bedard in his own tier. The first tier, the second tier is Michkov alone, and the third tier is the 3 guys that you just mentioned.
You just answered my question. If Matvei Michkov is available for the Montreal Canadiens at pick number 5, and you, Kyle Woodlief, former scout of the Nashville Predators, were the main scout for the Montreal Canadiens, you're at that table. Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon look at you and say, Kyle, what are we going to do? You look back at them and you say what?
We're going to draft the most dynamic talent that the Canadiens have drafted since Guy Lafleur in 1971.
Wow. And then I'm Kent Hughes and I look at you and I say, Kyle, we've talked about this before. He's under contract for the next 3 years. And there's no guarantee he'll ever come over. And you say?
He's coming over. He'll be over when his contract is done. And given what's going on in Russia now, some money could maybe get him out of the contract a year early.
Oh, really?
I think there's a possibility that he won't be in Russia come 2026.
So I'm sure you've talked to some of your people about this, some people there. For the most part, is there anyone who's saying there's a risk he's staying in Russia? For the most part, everyone's saying he'll make his way to the National Hockey League?
I do believe that, yes.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Well, there you have it. Things just got even more interesting now. Kyle, you know what? I think my gut, and I don't know this for a fact, and you know what? If Michkov's available and the Canadiens pick him, then Kent Hughes is the best poker player in the world, and we need to get him to Playground to play in the Summer Million, the must-play poker event of the season, all right? But unless that's the case, my gut tells me that they're worried about taking this player. And as a matter of fact, they might even consider trading the pick because they don't want to be the team that passed up on Michkov. There's a lot of pressure here from the media based on what we're hearing that this guy is in a league of his own after Bedard as the second best pure talent in the draft to draft him. I think it worries the Canadiens. But then again, out of all the teams in the National Hockey League, the team that has the most intel, you would think, on Michkov are the Montreal Canadiens, whose director of scouting, Nick Bobrov's father, works for SKA.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Montreal is going to take Michkov if he's there at 5, but I think it will be a mistake. I personally think every team that doesn't take him after number 1 is making a mistake.
You're watching live on YouTube, live on Facebook, live on Twitter. We're going till at least about 10 p.m. tonight, at least. And there's going to be a lot of collaborators who are going to join us once again. Byron Bader is going to join us. Grant McCagg is going to join us. Marc-André Perreault is going to join us. Tony Ferrari is going to join us. We have an action-packed podcast for you tonight. It's an NHL draft extravaganza, the sickest NHL draft show that you've probably ever seen and will ever hear. At least we hope so. Okay, we're pretty confident about it. All right, okay. Adam Fantilli, based on what you're hearing, is he a slam dunk to go number 2? We know that Pat Verbeek isn't afraid of making bold moves. For the most part, people have Fantilli at number 2. But an NHL player agent told me a couple of days ago, Tony, I wouldn't be shocked if they go Karlsson number 2.
I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I take Verbeek at his word. He has said for months now that they're taking a center, and that makes sense given the 3 centers who are going to be available to them. I personally have Karlsson at number 3 and Fantilli at number 4. So there's not much to choose between them. If they chose to take Karlsson ahead of Fantilli at number 2, it wouldn't surprise me. And if Karlsson doesn't go at number 2, I certainly don't think he's getting past number 3.
All right. Why do you have Karlsson ahead of Fantilli when most have Fantilli ahead of Karlsson? Listen, not a big deal. Some have him at 2, the others have him at 3. Some have him at 3, the others have him at 2. It's no big deal. But what's the difference in your opinion?
He's a more mature kid. He's a better two-way player. And I think he gets his teammates more involved in the game. I think there are times that for all his skill, Fantilli has a little bit of a problem when the game slows down and he has to create off of set plays. He's much better creating off the rush. And frankly, I still see him making the same mistakes that I saw him making 2 and 3 years ago. I've never seen a guy who makes as many turnovers coming out of his own defensive end as Fantilli. I mean, the problem hasn't been corrected. Coaches haven't seemed to be able to get through to him. And he's a turnover machine coming out of his own end.
What do you, out of all the characteristics, what do you put the most onus on yourself?
Hockey sense and skating are the 2. So Anaheim took Karlsson. Is that what I'm seeing?
It's up right now. You might be a second or two ahead of me, but yeah, Anaheim has taken Leo Karlsson.
Yep. Yeah, I don't see that as a big upset. I mean, Verbeek had said he was going to take a center, and I think Karlsson is a better two-way center. He's more physical than Fantilli. He's better defensively. He's he's a more mature player.
Yeah.
So,
and I said it here. I talked to an agent a couple of days ago, and I talked to a scout a week ago, and I've been saying this on the Sick podcast. The more people I've been talking to, the more people have been telling me that in the past couple of days, past week, Leo Karlsson's name has been coming up more often than not. A couple of people whispered in my ear, Tony, don't be surprised. Anaheim's going with Leo Karlsson. It is official. They got Leo Karlsson. Adam Fantilli, just picking up on him, his foot speed supposedly is something that is worrying people a little bit. So let me ask you about the characteristics once again. How would you rate them in terms of what you think is most important for you in your scouting eyes and what's least important?
Again, skating and hockey sense are the two biggest.
Skating and hockey sense.
Yeah. And
character?
Character is behind those two, but certainly way up there. And I certainly would rank Karlsson ahead on character. I would have him slightly ahead on skating. The hockey sense issue, Fantilli has terrific hockey sense. So I might even give him a slight edge on the hockey sense issue.
All right. Where they play, the leagues they play in, do you put more onus on one over the other? We talked about Michkov. Is the KHL a good development league? Yes or no, and why?
It depends on what team you're talking about. With SKA in St. Petersburg, yes, good development. With other teams, I'd be a little leery if I were an NHL team and I knew that my star draftee was going to be there for another couple of years. But with St. Petersburg, no. I mean, granted, he wasn't getting the ice time at age 18 this year that he would have liked. So St. Petersburg actually loaned him out to Sochi so that he could get more ice time and, first line time, power play time to show off the skills that he has. And I think, that's a really good sign from St. Petersburg that they knew they didn't really have anything more than fourth line time for him because they had a veteran team, a strong team, and they loaned him out to Sochi so that he could get the development that he needed.
All right. In terms of pick number 3 now, of course, it's Jarmo Kekalainen and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And we know, of course, that in terms of scouting, that former Montreal Canadiens director of amateur scouting, Trevor Timmins, has a prominent role there. Knowing Jarmo, knowing Trevor, what do you think they're looking at?
I think that they will go with Fantilli. Yeah, I think that they also want a big center with size down the middle. Will Smith would be attractive to them, but doesn't quite have that size that Fantilli brings. So I think that they'll lean towards taking Fantilli here.
Does Fantilli? Who would you compare Fantilli to? Actually, who would you compare Leo Karlsson to first?
That's a good question. I would have to say, although it's a different position, I would kind of liken Karlsson to a Mikko Rantanen in terms of their size and the games that they play. When Karlsson does play on the wing, he reminds me very much of a Mikko Rantanen. But I do think that he's a natural center who will wind up staying at center in the NHL.
And who does Fantilli remind you of?
I would say Fantilli reminds me not quite the pure goal scoring ability, but a little bit of Austin Matthews in that his game is not as well rounded. He's not as edgy. So I would say he's a pure offensive player, but there are warts to the game.
Will Smith, we're going to find out pretty soon here whether or not he's going to be available at number 5 for the Montreal Canadiens. Grant McCagg of Recruits and Recruits.ca will join us a little bit later on. he has his reservations when it comes to Will Smith. He's not the president of the Will Smith fan club. He said that it's play without the puck worries him. The 200-foot game worries him. Does it worry you?
I would agree that, he's not the greatest two-way player. His game is predicated on having the puck and creating offense, and he can get a little lost in his own end. I'm not 1,000% certain that Will Smith wouldn't be better off on the wing as a pro. I mean, I think whatever team drafts him will keep him at center until he proves that he can't play there. But I think that he will definitely start out as a center in the NHL. And if he does what everybody feels he's going to do, then, I think Smith can stay at center. But again, he might be better off on the wing because he's a pure scorer.
The Columbus Blue Jackets are up at the podium. There's John Davidson. There's Trevor Timmins. Look at him, huh? Looking nice and svelte. Trevor is, as usual, right?
I believe Trevor actually is the first person to introduce you and I, Tony.
Is that right?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. I don't remember that, but anyway, that's pretty cool. All right. Okay. So we're waiting to hear who's going number 3, and it should come in any second now. So let's see what happens here. What's your prediction? Your prediction here is Fantilli?
I think Fantilli will be the pick here. Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's Will Smith. Let's hear. There's Jarmo Kekalainen. Yeah, Adam Fantilli's the pick.
Yep.
Adam Fantilli's the pick. All right, okay. So Adam Fantilli's the pick. And now the big question is, San Jose, is Mike Greer, who went to St. Sebastian's, going to pass on Will Smith, who went to St. Sebastian's? Is an American GM going to pass on an American player? Is Mike Smith going to take a chance and go with Matvei Michkov? And if he doesn't, number 5 pick with the Montreal Canadiens, are the Canadiens going to have the courage to be the first ones to step up and draft Matvei Michkov? We were hearing up until about a week ago that, the Canadiens were worried about it. And there's Michkov right there. Gave a hug to Adam Fantilli.
Yep.
I draft him based just on his suit. Just on the suit, I draft him. Led all U.S. college hockey skaters with 30 goals and 65 points in 30 games. Those are pretty impressive stats. Wow. Pretty impressive stats.
Yep. Well, he's going to score plenty. I mean, that's not Fantilli's problem. He will score.
He's got the NHL body already, eh, Kyle?
He does, but not the way Carlson does. I mean, Carlson is a moose. People don't realize how big and strong he is. I mean, Carlson was playing in the elite league all season long in Sweden this year against 30-year-old men and more than holding his own. I mean, he was winning the majority of the battles against men. He's a horse out there.
All right, let's see what happens. If San Jose takes Will Smith,
yeah,
who do you think the Canadiens are going to take if they pick 5th?
I don't think they will pick 5th. I think
they're going to trade it.
I think there's merit to the talks they've had with Philadelphia. I think you could see them move down to number 7 with Philadelphia. But if they do stay at number 5,
they're going to pick Ryan Leonard.
I think they'll pick Ryan Leonard. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen if they pick 5. But at this point, we'll see what happens. If you're going to trade down, what are you getting? You need to get something pretty good.
Yeah, I think they'll get 7 and 22, and they'll offload Dvorak's contract. I think Philadelphia will take on the nearly $4.5 million that Dvorak is owed.
So you think with the Montreal Canadiens acquiring Alex Newhook yesterday from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for picks 31, picks 37, and Gianni Fairbrother, that means that Christian Dvorak's time with the Montreal Canadiens, he's on borrowed time?
I do think so, yes.
Gianni Fairbrother, by the way, do you have a scouting report on him? Because they gave him up yesterday, and Trevor Timmins was high on him when they drafted him several years ago. He really wanted him. There's images there that you can find on YouTube of Bergevin saying, "You really want this Fairbrother?" And he's like, "Yeah, you really want him? Yeah, okay, boom." They go out and draft him. Obviously, the Canadiens making the deal yesterday, trading him, have determined that, you know what, with the surplus of defensemen that they have and the cupboard of defensemen that they have, that he's not going to be in their plans going forward. But what kind of a defenseman is he? And is there any risk of any regret down the line by trading him away?
He is a tough physical defenseman.
I know.
He's not huge. I'd say he's 6 foot, maybe scraping 6'1", maybe, and probably a little over 200 pounds. But he punches above his weight.
Is that the Canadiens' way of saying that they have Jaden Struble ahead of Johnny Fairbrother on the depth chart?
Yeah, I think not just Jaden Struble. I mean, you know, you've got guys like Mayu and Adam Engstrom and Hudson. I mean, I think all three of those guys are your top three defense prospects. So, you know, between having 5 rookies on their own blue line in Montreal last year and having Hudson, Mayu, and Adam Engstrom, there's not a whole lot of room for a left shot defenseman. So I think even William Trudeau has really come along nicely. I think, you know, he would be well ahead of, certainly well ahead of Gianni Fairbrother, and I would have him ahead of Struble at this point too. So when you throw Trudeau and Struble in, you've got 5 guys who are pretty strong prospects coming along behind 5 rookies who already played for you last year.
San Jose, pick 4 is in. Pick 4 is in. And we'll see what happens here in about a minute or two. Once again, in case you're just joining us and you don't have an eye on the draft, and we thank you all for watching tonight on this special edition of the Sick Podcast. It is Connor Bedard, number 1 to Chicago. Leo Carlson, number 2 to Anaheim. Adam Fantilli, number 3 to Columbus. And the San Jose Sharks are about to go up and make their pick with pick number 4. Once again, the Montreal Canadiens, for now, have pick number 5, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not they're going to pick or they're going to do something. The Sharks are getting up to make their pick.
I'll say this, Tony. If Montreal has the chance to draft Michkov and passes, it'll be similar to when they had the chance in 1980, 43 years ago, to draft Denny Savard and passed him for Doug Wickenheiser.
Yeah. Doug Wickenheiser, of course, the late Doug Wickenheiser went number 1, and it was a bad omen right away because the first time they played the Chicago Blackhawks, Wickenheiser was a healthy scratch, and Denny Savard, I think, had a couple of points and was I think it was the first star of the game.
Yeah.
Mike Greer is there. Let's see what happens. With all eyes on the screen, this is it, the moment of truth. Will he draft Will Smith or will he draft Michkov? Most people seem to believe that Will Smith is going to be the pick. If it is, what do the Canadiens do at 5? And if it isn't, then you can think it's going to be Will Smith. Let's hear from Mike Greer. We're looking. There he is. He's congratulating the Vegas Golden Knights. All right. Patrick Marleau to make the pick. Will Smith. There you have it.
Yep.
Will Smith at number 4.
Well, I think this is a scenario that Montreal did not want. But
this is the scenario they didn't want. Now, let's put the cards on the table, whether or not to see if they have the balls to make the pick. That's it.
That's exactly right.
Right? That's it. That's what it comes down to. Either you have them or you don't. Let's go.
I mean, Montreal hasn't drafted a player as dynamically skilled as Michkov since the 1970s. I mean, you had Lafleur in 71, Steve Shutt in 72, and maybe Mats Naslund in 79. And they had a chance at Savard in 80 and blew it after Sammy Pollock retired. And they haven't had a player of that caliber ever since. So for me, it's a no-brainer, but I don't think Montreal's thinking that way.
All right. Okay. Wow. Will Smith makes his way down. Let's bring up George Larac if we can. George Larac, who had a chance to talk to Will Smith.
Quand tu parles à tous les joueurs, puis les joueurs, ils disent tout, c'est n'importe quelle équipe qu'ils vont prendre, je vais être content. OK? Ça, tous les joueurs disent ça.
Ben oui, ils n'ont pas le choix.
Will Smith m'a dit que ça serait spécial, puis il aimerait bien ça, jouer pour le Canadien de Montréal. Pas juste dû à sa connexion avec Kent Hughes, qu'on le sait tous, mais faire partie d'un noyau avec Caulfield, Suzuki, c'est quelque chose qui serait très honoré. Quoique, tu sais, il va être content n'importe quelle équipe, il va aller, mais c'est sûr que de ce côté-là, il ne dirait pas non, puis il est excité à l'idée que ça soit très possible qu'il
fun.
avec le Canadien.
There you have it. George Larac on BPM Sports Radio, who said, I had a chance to talk to Will Smith, and he said, all players will tell you that they don't care where they go. They just want to go anywhere. But he said, Will Smith said it would be really special to go to the Montreal Canadiens, to play with a guy like Suzuki, to play with a guy like Caulfield. Obviously, he knows Kent Hughes very, very well, so he was looking forward to it. But I think he's made out pretty good with the San Jose Sharks. We don't have to worry about that. But once again, I talked about this for the last 2 or 3 weeks now. If Will Smith was available at 4, was Mike Greer going to pass on him? And I didn't think he was. And I mentioned it, that, they both Americans, both went to St. Sebastian's. And if he was available, it was going to be his pick. And now the moment of truth coming up with the Montreal Canadiens. And let's see whether or not they make the pick.
I mean, I don't think that your gut has been wrong. I think Kent Hughes is, I don't think he's been trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I think as an organization, I don't think Montreal relishes the thought of drafting Michkov, waiting 3 years. And I just don't see them. I think they're too risk averse at this point to do that.
And Michkov telling members of the media, by the way, he met with several teams, the Montreal Canadiens being one of those teams. And he let those teams know, listen, I want to play in the National Hockey League. If you're wondering if I want to play in the NHL or not, I want to play in the NHL.
I know for sure that he has spoken with a lot of Russian players who've been over in the NHL, came back and are now playing in the KHL. He's constantly asking them, what are things like in the NHL? Where should I want to be at? He's already thinking about his future in the NHL.
What do you make of, rumblings that he's probably not the best teammate and all that stuff? Because you're hearing some of that. When you hear that, and by the way, he's not the first guy we've heard this about. We've heard it about some others. Sometimes it's legit, sometimes it's not. But when you hear a player is not the best teammate, does that scare you off?
Depends. I mean, you have to consider the source. This is also lying season. There's, scouts are going to lie to try and get a guy to slip maybe down to them. All I can tell you is when the game is on the line in the third period and it's tied or you're a goal behind, the guy who wants the puck on his stick is Michkov. And when he gets it on his stick, he does something with it.
It's the first time the Montreal Canadiens have a top 5 pick in consecutive seasons since 71-72, when they drafted Guy Lafleur in 71 and Steve Shutt in 72. We have our eyes on the screen, the tables on the Montreal Canadiens. There's little movement so far, and we'll see what happens. Pick 5 is in. Pick 5 is in. The moment of truth.
Yeah, I'm afraid it'll be Ryan Leonard. Not that he's not a good player. He'll be a good player, but he's not on the level of a Michkov. If you're going to take a winger, take the better winger.
If you're going to take a winger, take the better winger.
It's pretty simple.
Carey Price going up to make the pick, it seems. I don't know whether he's going to make it, but he's probably not going to make it. It's probably going to be Kent Hughes, but he's up with Hughes and Gordon. Yeah. Like Nick Suzuki was up with them about a year ago as well when the Canadiens drafted, of course, Juraj Slafkowski. Jeff Gordon, Jeff Molson, Kent Hughes, Martin Lapointe, Nick Bobrov, Vincent Lecavalier. Marty St. Louis. And here we go. There we go. The selection is going to be made by the former 5th overall pick, Carey Price. Reinbacher. David Reinbacher. They went with the defenseman. There we go. They went with the defenseman.
Well, they haven't gotten any better at drafting.
You have this player where on your list? Let's bring up your list again of your top 32.
20.
You have him at 20. You don't even have him as your number 1 defenseman. You have Axel sending Pellikka at number 6.
Correct.
Why do you have Pellikka ahead of Reinbacher?
Better skater, better offensive skills, will be a power play quarterback at the NHL level, will be a legitimate number 1 defenseman in the league. Reinbacher, for me, if he hits his ceiling, he can be a top pairing guy, but he'll be the guy who pairs up with the more offensively skilled guy.
Carey Price, by the way, forgot his name. He said David. He didn't remember the family name. He looked around. He looked back. Kent Hughes came in and tried to save him. Told everyone that they planned it that way. Obviously, they didn't. No. This is a really bad omen. This is a bad omen. When the guy goes up to pick to name the player and forgets the player's name, I just have a feeling this is a really bad omen. I wish David Reinbacher all the best, but this is just like it's like a movie gone wrong right now. It really is. This is like a movie gone wrong. Oh, my God. Why do you have him at 20? You have him at 20. You have David Reinbacher at 20. Mm-hmm. Why do you have him at 20?
He's a good, solid defenseman. As I said, a guy like Pellikka will be the number 1 defenseman who, you know, if he hits his potential, will score 60 to 70 points. He'll be your zone entry machine. He will run your power play. David Reinbacher will be perhaps a top pairing defenseman, but if he is, he'll be the guy who pairs up with the number 1 guy.
We had this kind of season, all this suffering to take a defenseman that some scouts like yourself don't have as the number 1 defenseman on their list and have a 20th. They took him at 5. Yeah. I'm speechless, but I'm not surprised. There's 2 things here. Organizational need. Safe pick, probably. Not too many right-handed defensemen. And if you were going to take Reinbacher, you could have traded the pick.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. When has drafting for organizational need in the top 5 ever served Montreal well?
Never.
How'd it go with Kotkaniemi?
It didn't go well with Kotkaniemi, and it didn't go well with Galchenyuk.
There you go. You've got 5 rookie defensemen last year, plus the 5 prospects that I just named, and you're concerned because you don't have enough right-hand shot defensemen. So what? Trade a left shot defenseman for a right shot defenseman. It's not hard.
I think the honeymoon is over, right?
I would say officially.
I think the honeymoon Wednesday, June 28th, 7:45 p.m. The honeymoon is over.
Yeah. Now the key question is, will Michkov make it to Washington at 8?
My God, Carey Price didn't even know the guy's name.
Yep.
Carey, we love you. Really, we do. You had a great career, and we really love you. But you had one job. They brought you up. You had one job. You won. You know, Steve Harvey. You had one job, right? To name the winner of the pageant. You had one job. That's it, right? You didn't have to. The name on the cue card was not the winner. Right? It was the runner up. Right. The next one was the winner. Right. Oh, jeez. Yeah. This is just such a bad omen. Like, I think I'm going to be sick to my stomach. Really, this is terrible. This is really terrible.
Yeah, there's no sugarcoating that one.
So a message by Thomas Vanek, a fellow Austrian, message for David Reinbacher. Has Austria ever produced defensemen in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, there have been a couple.
Yeah?
I'm sure there have. It's more recently, though, it's all been forwards. I mean, Marco Rossi was a high pick.
Yeah.
Vanek was a high pick.
Yeah.
So I mean, last year, Marco Kasper was a high pick from Austria.
Yeah. But defensemen?
Not high picks. I think there have been a couple of Austrian defensemen who played in the league, but not studs.
This is great. This is just great. Is this a joke?
It's a bad one if it is.
So obviously they were worried about taking Michkov, like every other team has been so far. Arizona up next. But what I don't understand, when you talk about organizational need, Ryan Leonard is also an organizational lead.
Absolutely. Goal-scoring winger.
A goal-scoring winger who plays like the Tkachuk brothers.
What?
Why wouldn't you want him instead of a right-handed defenseman?
Beats me.
Because the right-handed defenseman who's a potential first-pairing guy, you already have is Logan Mailloux.
Yeah.
But who's the right winger power forward? Who's that?
Arizona takes Simashev. Okay.
Arizona off the board a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he was a first rounder, but I wouldn't have, if you're going to tell me that the first Russian off the board was going to be Simashev ahead of Michkov, no. Sorry, if you've got the guts to take a Russian, you take Michkov.
Why is Michkov scaring everybody off so much? Because now you can throw the Russian thing out the window. You just took a Russian.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yes, I'm sure Simashev does not have 3 years left on his contract over in Russia.
That's a valid point. Do you think that the tragedy that happened in Michkov's family has scared scouts off in terms of if there was something there, there's another reason to keep him behind in Russia?
That's possible. I don't have any insight specifically into that situation, but we don't know what NHL clubs might have unearthed in doing their due diligence on that situation. And absolutely, every team drafting in the top 10 did their due diligence on that situation.
Whoa, this draft has taken quite the turn, huh? Quite the turn. Quite the turn. Wow. Simishev, by the way, on some lists, was rated as far down as 30th.
That's where we had him. Yeah.
You had him at 30.
Yeah. And I will say that, we definitely downgraded him a bit because of the Russian factor.
All right. Wow. At pick number 7, what are you thinking?
I don't think Philadelphia lets Michkov get to Washington at 8. I think Philadelphia is going to take Michkov.
Oh, really?
I do.
Yep. We're going to find out right now.
Yep.
Would be quite the coup for Danny Briere. I don't think Danny Briere is scared to pull the trigger.
I don't think he is at all.
But once again, Bobrov's got intel here. Like, I know Bobrov and Gordon are close, but man, he's putting a lot on the line here, and he's got some information. He better hope it's the right information that he has.
Yeah.
Because if Michkov ends up making it to the National Hockey League in 3 years from now, and is the closest thing to Bedard, we got a problem. We got a big problem.
That is correct.
Wow. All right. I appreciate your time very, very much. We've done close to about 45 minutes here, Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle Woodlief, the Red Line Report. Follow him on Twitter. At least the Red Line Report is on Twitter. Kyle, I don't know if you are, but on Twitter it's the Red Line Report. DAREDLINE Report. And you've been running this agency for how long?
24 years.
24 years.
Yes.
Wow. Congrats, Kyle, on all the great work. And I'm sorry that your flight was canceled, but I have to tell you selfishly, I'm, I was pretty excited when I found out that you would be available to do this. And you know what? You're so passionate about the game and the drafts and stuff. I didn't have to ask twice. The second I asked you, you said, yeah, you know what? Let's do this. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Happy to be with you, Tony.
All right. There you have it. Kyle Woodlief of the Red Line Report. All right. It looks like Byron Bader is going to join us any second now. Looks like he'll join us any second. And we're going to get reaction, of course, by Marc-André Perreault. Grant McCagg is going to join us as well. And we have a lot to talk about later on in the program. Tony Ferrari will join us. And everyone's just in a little bit in shock here. But you know what? It as much as everyone's in shock, it kind of went down the way a lot of us thought it would go down. Just going with a safe pick and going with organizational need and grabbing, the right-handed defenseman. We thought it would be either the right-handed defenseman or it would be the winger who played a power game and Ryan Leonard. And in the end, it was the defenseman. I think I'm going to end up having... Listen, folks, if he ends up being the best defenseman in the draft, it's not a bad pick. For the most part, though, right now, it's just not a sexy pick. That's the problem. All right, okay. Let's see what happens here with the Philadelphia Flyers. And let's see what they do. The Flyers are up. Pick number 7. Washington is next with pick number 8. It's Keith Jones making the pick. They're all talking about David Poile, of course, with the draft taking place in Nashville. Let's bring in Byron Bader of Hockey Prospecting. Byron, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for doing this. We're just about to hear the Philadelphia Flyers pick. There you have it. Matvei Michkov.
Oh boy.
The Flyers take Michkov. What do you think?
Habs. Wow. I'm surprised he made it that far. Yeah, like he looks very. I mean, you got to wait on him a little bit. You got to wait on him 3 years, but I think he's going to be a superstar when you look at him in like a model like mine. I mean, every player that looks like that turns into like a point per game superstar. You know, he looks very similar to Bedard. So a bit surprised he made it all the way to 7th like this.
If we can, Shane Gaumont and Master Control, let's bring up Byron's top 32. Byron had Connor Bedard 1, Fantilli 2, Michkov 3, Benson 4, Will Smith 5, Leo Carlson 6, Andrew Cristall, Woodlief, Reinbacher at 9. Let's go back to the Canadiens pick. They picked Reinbacher with the 5th pick. You say what?
Yeah, so I mean, I certainly think he's probably the most, well-rounded defenseman in the draft. And, he's a two-way defenseman, and he also has the offensive punch. In a model like mine, he looks pretty good, different comparables, but like Victor Hedman is kind of best case scenario. A guy like Morgan Riley look like that. So you're probably getting a really good player. You're getting, a top 4 guy, maybe a guy that can kind of drive your first power play unit. But yeah, I'm surprised that maybe Michkov wasn't the pick there.
Wow. You talked to us about how you grade your players. Without giving away all your trade secrets, how do you grade them?
So it's essentially using this idea of this equivalency metric. So if you look at all these different leagues, there's about 50 theoretical leagues that all these players can come from.
Yeah.
And a point, in the OHL is different from a point in college, and it's different from all the Euro leagues, which is different from high school and all these different leagues when you compare it back to, how they produce in the NHL. So it's essentially taking all this information and putting all these players on the same level playing field. And then you add in different metrics like, their age, like a guy born in the summer versus somebody born maybe in like January, like that's a big, big difference. And then you era adjust everything for, the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s. And basically, a superstar or players that really make the NHL, they often have a similar pattern. And essentially, they have these highest sort of normalized scores earlier. And yeah, and that's kind of the pattern. And the most superstars, they hit these really high levels really early. So that's kind of what my model is doing. And then when I'm ranking the top 32, I'm also kind of taking into account their reputation. So where they're sort of ranked by most consensus drafts, because they're obviously going to get the best shot. But that's how it's kind of formulated. It's, a lot of math involved, and yeah, but that's kind of how it works.
So when you put your metrics together on Michkov, what do you have?
I mean, when you look at, his pre-draft scoring from last year and then this year, like there's very few that look like this. And all of them have turned into essentially point per game superstars. Bedard looked like this, Sidney Crosby looked like this, McDavid looked like this, Jack Eichel, Patrick Kane, Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, like everybody that looks like Bedard and Michkov has turned into essentially a point per game or more superstar. So, I mean, that's kind of what's been passed over 7 times here, or 6 times.
Wow. So based on the metrics that you use, it's the same metrics for those superstars that you just talked about who have turned out to be superstars in the National Hockey League level. I mean, anything can happen, but you're basically telling us that if Matvei Michkov comes over and plays in the National Hockey League, he has superstar written all over him.
Yeah, like I would expect him to produce on a similar plane to Ovechkin, Panarin, and Kaprizov, and I'd be pretty shocked if he didn't really hit that level.
Wow. Even though it's just you and I right now on the stream, but of course there are over 1,100 watching on YouTube alone, and we add Twitter and Facebook to that, over 1,500 strong. You would think. I sense a dejection right now, like you can't believe. I sense a fan base that is just distraught, devastated, emotional. When you said 7 teams passed on Michkov?
6 teams, I guess, technically. Yeah.
6. Pardon me, yes, because the Flyers grabbed them at 7. Correct.
Yep.
Would you say they lacked courage? And not Chicago, obviously, because we knew that Bedard was going number 1. But the other 5 teams, did they lack courage, in your opinion?
I don't know if it's courage or if it's foresight. If you're thinking 3 years, or maybe that this dicey situation in Russia where you never know where it's going to go, you think that he's not going to come over at some point, so you need to take a safer sort of North American pick. So I don't know if it's courage or their thought process is a player is going to make an impact prior to that 3 years, which is pretty rare for an NHL. Even if they make the NHL within that 3 years, they often aren't doing much before that kind of 3 years. I mean, Bedard will, obviously, Fantilli probably will, Carlson probably gets a good shot, but I mean, after that, you're basically looking at least 3 years anyway. So yeah, I don't know if it's courage or if it's just maybe more of a looking ahead and when players actually come in and when they make an impact. Because yeah, I think Michkov is going to come in 3 years and be just like that kind of Malkin Kaprizov thing where he steps off the plane and immediately just starts to cook. So
Ryan McClellan of the Washington Capitals up on stage, and they'll make their pick in just a second. But once again, it feels like Kent Hughes had a chance to hit a home run, but was just content on hitting a double.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. Ryan Leonard looks like.
Yeah, so the pick is in.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I mean Reinbacher's, yeah, he's a great prospect. You'd probably be happy to get him, 5th overall most drafts. This is a really deep draft. And yeah, I just think they should have gone Michkov there. Just, they're not ready to blow the doors off and start competing quite yet. So I mean, waiting a couple years for a player like that, I mean, I think it was, it would have been perfect for Montreal. So yeah, I can feel their dejection a little bit myself because I'd be a little upset as a Montreal fan.
Would you have taken if you had to take between Reinbacher? So if you're not taking Michkov, would you have taken Leonard before Reinbacher?
No, not necessarily, because Reinbacher, this draft isn't really loaded in terms of D, and like I said, Reinbacher is probably one of the best D in the class. I mean, it's certainly well-rounded, but he also has, that look in the model that says this guy could be, a really good, offensive star-like defenseman. So I would probably, if Michkov's off the table, I'd probably go Reinbacher there between the two.
All right. Zach Benson put up incredible numbers in the WHL, but unfortunately for him, undersized. We take a look at the Canadiens, who just got Newhook. They have Caulfield. They have Suzuki. It would probably mean a lot of small players. We saw the way Vegas won, and they won with a relatively big team. That's probably what scared off the Canadiens. Is this what's scaring off a lot of teams? Benson sliding a little bit as well, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, if he's, because I think he's about 5'10" or 5'11", like if he's even average height, 6 feet, 6'1", like he's probably going maybe even in the top 5. Yeah, I mean, like in a model like mine, he looks great, very rare. He actually looks like another short player who's turned out really amazing, so I'm surprised that they would stay away. But he looks almost exactly like a guy like Mitch Marner. And I mean, Mitch Marner went 4th overall and worked out almost better than expected. So I'm a bit surprised that he's kind of, sliding this far. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the size thing. If he was, like I said, 2 or 3 inches taller, he's probably going a lot higher.
All right. Okay. What can you tell me about Ryan Leonard, who was just selected?
Yeah, I mean, with the scouting report on him is he's just like he competes every single shift. He never takes a shift off, whether he's down by 7 or up by 3. Like every moment matters. So I mean, you're kind of going for that compete level. When you look at him like in a model like mine, bit of an older player, pretty good production in his draft year, but not like that elite quality. And then, the pre-draft year production, not overly strong. So when you look at guys like this, like they only turn into stars about 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 times. So, I mean, you're probably getting, a nice two-way center, but, probably not like a superstar or anything like that.
All right. Okay. Who do you have next up on your list? Let's bring up your list one more time.
Take that off.
What was that? There we go. All right. Let's get your list there. Okay. Bedard, Fantilli, Michkov, Benson, Smith, Leo Carlson. Let's keep the list up if we can. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Leo Carlson, you had 6th on your list. He went 2.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's not really a knock against him. That's more the strength of this 2023 draft. So in my model, like he looks good. He's almost a little underrated by my model. Just he had a really massive year last year, and then he moved over to the SHL, and then he didn't really jump up another level, which is kind of what the model is looking for. It's looking for you to make these big jumps through these progressions. And when you look at players that didn't really jump like that, like, they don't tend to hit as stars as much. So that's why he's ranked a little bit lower. But again, it's not really him. Like, I think he's a little bit undervalued in the model, but the 5 that I have ahead of him just look so good, and like almost like these rare elite profiles. Like, I mean, you have Bedard, who's a generational talent looking. Michkov looks generational. Fantilli, compares with guys like Pat LaFontaine and Lindros. And then Zach Benson, like I mentioned, he looks like, Mitch Marner and Joe Thornton and Jason Spezza. Will Smith looks like, a guy like Marian Hossa. So then that's why he's ranked there. He's just, the guys ahead of him just look so good. And, the reputation is quite high with them. And that's where he kind of slotted for me.
All right. Okay. Is Carlson definitely a center?
Yeah, he plays both sides. So, I mean, yeah, he's big, he's strong. I think he mostly played center and in the SHL this year, but you could probably go either way. I mean, a lot of the times you draft these guys as centers, and then, you move them over to the wing, and then you use them here and there in face-offs and that type of thing. So, he'll probably do a little bit of both, but I imagine he'll be a center in the NHL, but who knows?
Steve Yzerman, who a couple of years ago drafted a defenseman, of course, Moritz Seider, who a lot of people had on their list at 17 or 18. I think he drafted him 6, is up. The Detroit Red Wings are going to make their selection.
Looks like...
There we go. The centerman, Danielson, yeah.
Yeah. That's a bit high for him, I think. Was that 9th overall?
You know what?
He was kind of ranking the teams.
When Steve Yzerman steps up to a podium and drafts a centerman, I have confidence Steve Yzerman knows what he's doing. Let Brandon.
Well, I can tell you, he doesn't look like Steve Yzerman in the model. Like, Steve Yzerman looked amazing. Danielson doesn't look quite that, extraordinary. But yeah, you always got to trust Yzerman, anyways.
Yeah, Montreal-born Joe Veleno, of course, was a first-round pick of the Detroit Red Wings several years ago when he went 30th overall. That was the year of the Kotkaniemi draft, by the way. That was the Kotkaniemi draft, right? Joe Veleno went 30th.
Yeah,
that is correct. Yeah. All right. Okay. I want to bring back up your list again, if we can.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you have Danielson?
Where did I have him? I had him 25th.
Wow.
So, yeah, when you look at him, like he's older. So he's born September, like he's as old as you can get because he's born September 27th. And the production, like he kind of plateaued in his draft year. His production in his pre-draft year was pretty good, but then he didn't really go up another level in his draft year. So you look at that, you combine that with his age. These guys turn into stars like once every 5 years. So you're basically almost certainly not getting like a offensive star out of this. So, you draft in two-way center. I mean, that's kind of what you're hooked to now, because that type of archetype and that type of look of a player doesn't really turn into like a big stud, like the all-star studs too often. So that's what you're kind of getting with a guy like Danielson. And like I said, probably, a bit early, and he's probably, a bit earlier than a lot of teams would have taken him. So kind of interesting. They went with that, in the top 10, especially.
Yeah. And Dalibor Dvorsky, by the way, who, center/wing, has not been taken yet. Foot speed issue?
I think it's okay. I mean, I'm not a scout. From what I watched, he seems okay. When you look at him, he kind of has this Jekyll and Hyde thing in terms of like a model. Like he didn't really do too much in the Alvenstan, which is like the secondary Swedish league, but it's actually like a really good quality league. But then in the J20, he looks really good, but it's off of a small game sample. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a foot speed issue there. A younger guy is big, really highly thought of. So I think he's going to go pretty quick here.
All right. Okay. I see you have Quentin Musty at 13 on your list. So we have a collaborator, Simon Snake Boisvert, who's actually going to join me tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we'll start at the same time, by the way, folks, which is 7 p.m. Eastern time. Round 2 to round 7 goes tomorrow. It starts at 11 a.m. in Nashville. All right. We're going to bring you the podcast tomorrow night at 7 p.m. live again. And Simo the Snake Boisvert is going to be with me tomorrow to wrap up the draft. Simo Snake Boisvert has Quentin Musty at number 6 on his list. You have him way up there as well at number 13. Here's another guy. Here's a guy who also on some other lists you'll find at 25, 26, 27. You have him at 13. He's got him at 6. What can you tell me about him? He looks like he's got a lot of tools.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of has a little bit of everything. Like he can score, he can pass. He's big. He's not like one of these smaller guys that, often drop in these drafts. So normally a guy like this would go kind of in the top 10 or at least in the top 15, whereas he might fall to like the 20s type thing. And it could be the strength of this draft. But yeah, you look at guys, he's also very young. He's born in July. So when you look at guys that are similar size to him and produce like that, this kind of normalized scale that I've been talking about, that were drafted in the first round, like there's very few misses and it's a lot of good hits. Jonathan Huberdeau looked like that, and Sam Bennett, and Evander Kane, Kyle Turris, Pierre-Luc Dubois, your friend there. Lots of hits, and then there's very few of these. There's very few busts, I would say, from a player that looks like that has a similar size and is like of a similar age. So yeah, really like that pick. And like I said, like typically a guy that looks like that often goes kind of at the back end of a top 10, but this is just such a strong draft that he might fall, he might fall into the 20s, but I think a team's going to get a pretty good player there.
Since you talked about Dubois, of course, he was traded yesterday to the Los Angeles Kings for a left winger, a centerman, a right winger, and a second round pick in the 2024 draft. What did you make of the trade? And are the Canadiens going to regret not going all in for Pierre-Luc Dubois?
I thought it was a pretty good trade. I thought Winnipeg made out pretty good to get, like you've kind of mentioned, like a full line. I think Velarde's kind of the more special piece there. If he can stay healthy, he's had some pretty significant back injuries and stuff in the past, but if he can stay there, I think he could be a big piece and then get in the second as well. So I thought it was pretty fair value, especially for a guy that was, kind of writing his ticket for where he wanted to go. And will the Canadiens regret it? I mean, maybe, but it was also, it costs quite a bit. They're kind of, they're at the earlier stages of their rebuild. So are you taking away from, the big pieces that you have in your system to get him? Are you going to have to pay, maybe like a Lane Hudson or something to try and get him? And then you're not quite ready to compete. And then he's just kind of sitting on the roster making $8.5 million for 3 or 4 years before you can even kind of, get into the playoffs and get rolling. So yeah, they might regret it, but I think, maybe even like the timing for Montreal wasn't quite right. And and like your podcast kind of mentioned, like maybe he never really wanted to come here anyways. So, you know, you move on. And I think it was fair for both sides, and he seems happy now. So
the St. Louis Blues went up with the 10th pick overall in the draft. We should have it here just a second, as I'm a little bit behind on the TV.
Looks like it was a player we were just talking about.
Dalibor Dvorsky.
Dvorsky, there he is.
Yeah. Who had his last tournament that he had, he was very, very good, though. He was very good. I know that Grant McCagg,
he was great.
He was going to join us in about 25 minutes' time, is the president of the Dalibor Dvorsky fan club. He has him at number 3 on his list, by the way. He has him at number 3.
Wow.
On his list. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's big, he's young. Like I said, he showed well in the one league. So he's kind of like a unique case, but yeah, like I kind of had him right around this 9th, 10th hole. So kind of right where he was expected to go, basically. So.
Hey, Byron, before we let you go, Kevin Weeks has told us via Twitter that don't be surprised. The Montreal Canadiens are in and probably pursuing a goalie prospect from the Nashville Predators. What do your numbers tell you on Askarov?
Yeah, I mean, I think that completely makes sense for Montreal. Askarov, I would say, is one of the best goalie prospects in the world, not currently playing in the NHL. You know, he was Russian prospect, drafted in 2020 in the first round, playing in the Russian circuit like really early. He got into the KHL really early. So from my goalie models from hockeyprospecting.com, he shows really well. Goalies that, you know, hit that kind of KHL circuit like that really early like that, they often come over and do very, very well in the NHL. So I think that would be a big win for Montreal to pursue him, as of course, depending on what the cost is. But I really like that for Montreal.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. I appreciate you being part of the podcast tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. There you have it, Byron Bader. All right, okay. Let's go to Marc-André Perreault, who's a regular collaborator, usually on Wednesday nights. So it's fitting that he's with us tonight from TVA Sport. He covers the Montreal Canadiens. He's their Habs reporter. Comment vas-tu?
Ça va bien, mon chum. How are you?
I'm doing okay, but I got to tell you, just the read of social media and based on everyone who's live with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, it seems like a big sector of the fan base is dejected. This was not the sexy pick. It doesn't mean it wasn't the best pick, but it wasn't the sexy pick.
How many of them saw the kid play? That's the first question we have to ask. And then, I mean, Kent Hughes is not a gambler. That's, to me, it's the most important thing to say. Kent Hughes is not a gambler. So to me, I was not surprised he wouldn't go with Michkov. I have to be honest, I'm not following the prospect enough to tell you that, I'm surprised or it's a bad pick or it's a good pick. But to me, it shows again that Kent Hughes, he has a plan and he's not gambling. He's just staying focused with that plan. And it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Wow. And Carey Price?
That is so sad.
Honestly, it's really, really sad, eh?
And I'm sure
we probably shouldn't even be talking about it because he probably feels bad. I mean, it sucks. This is like going up, singing the anthem, and falling down. You know when that's happened to a few people,
yeah.
or forgetting the word
in,
to the anthem.
in Quebec City when she fell, that poor lady.
I was there.
Ago.
I was there
really?
for that game. Yeah.
But I'm sure Carey feels so bad because it's the kid's moment. And a lot of people will remember that pick, and it's gonna follow him like it followed Giroux for so many years when Bobby Clark forgot his name. I felt so bad for Carey. I didn't even think it was funny because I felt so bad. But hey, I mean, it is what it is, right? There's worse in life that being called on the stage from Carey Price. But yeah, it's sad.
Here's Carlo Kaliakovo, very confused about the Go Habs Go pick. They played 5 rookie defensemen last year, have Lane Hudson coming up, and they take a defenseman with a 5th overall pick in a forward-heavy draft.
That's, I mean, obviously it's a surprise for that. Lots of good forward were still available, but I think, you know, I mean, obviously Bedard, Fantilli, I think they were very high on Will Smith from what I've been told. So after that, I don't know. But to me, Will Smith was the guy they were targeting, and then when he got drafted from the team before, they just said, well, you know what, we go with the plan B, and this is the defenseman. But you never have enough Ds, right? Remember, Nashville Predators, they had Weber, they had Yossi, they had Ryan
Ellis.
They have Matthias Ekholm, so they were able to trade for Sam Girard. So you never have too many good defensemen. It's easy to trade after, so it's a good asset. And now they're in business. Remember a few years ago, like everyone was like, okay, you know, the Montreal's D will be, it's going to be tough in the next years, but now it's jam packed. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm not sure if they could have, you know, make a trade so they can get their guy later in you know, in the draft. That, to me, that's the question I would have for Kent Hughes. But again, he's not a gambler, so probably they were pretty high on that guy.
Reinbacher says that it's his preference to play a year in Sweden, and in Switzerland.
Yeah, have you seen the kid? He was so happy to wear that jersey. So it's a good sign. He was, but I don't know if you heard Daniel Brière. I just thought of that. No, Daniel Brière about Michkov. I don't know if you heard that on TVA Sport.
No.
He said, hockey point of view, he was top 4, Michkov, and then he said after we met him, it was a no-brainer for us. So
wow.
He obviously had a very good meeting with the Philadelphia Flyers, and Brière was very comfortable with drafting him. And again, he said he was an incredible kid, and he loved the meeting with him. So yeah, so that's it. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting because if he's as good as, you know, they say, and he's been incredible, according to Daniel Brière, that could be a grand slam for them.
I think our buddy Anthony Martineau of TVA Sport, I think at one point, I think I had heard him say that he had a chance to meet with Reinbacher, and he just found that there was little personality there, and maybe it's just his character, and maybe he's a little bit of an introvert, or maybe he doesn't open up very much. But when he was walking down to meet with the Canadiens on stage, I mean, it looked like he was going to a funeral.
Yeah, but I mean, they're young kids, and you have to walk. It's a pretty long aisle to go to, and you have the camera in your face. I mean, I would do it in my pants, that's for sure. So
you would do it in your pants,
of course. I mean, it's like not the walk of shame, but I mean, it's a long walk, and then you have the camera guy right in your face. You're a young kid. You never. I mean, it's impressive. It's pretty big. So maybe just a shy person, but hey, who cares? It's on the ice, right?
So
if he's not shy on the ice.
So, you know, I hope the Canadiens put Carey Price in front of us at some point soon, because if this is going to be the last memory of Carey Price with the Canadiens, hey, think about it. No, Macy. Look, it's pretty funny, but it's not. You know what I mean?
It's not. I thought it was.
No, it's pretty funny though. But
yeah, you know what? Let's say it's funny, because we don't have to make a big deal out of this. It's just, you know, it happens. It's not an easy name. It's like Marinaro, but yeah.
You're very kind. You know that. You're very nice. Because if I told you, Marc-André, you got one job. You're going up on the stage with us.
Yeah.
And you're going to announce our first pick, David Reinbacher. If I'm not sure when we're going up to the stage, I'm going to say, what's the guy's name again?
Yeah,
My
but
God.
you can't repeat when you're on your way to the stage because we're gonna be able to read on the lips on TV. It's not gonna work. Have you seen how tight they have the jersey in their hand?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
It's not gonna fall. You won't see the name. So yeah, but yeah, it's scary. So it's okay. But yeah, I saw that.
I get the feeling they could have hit a home run. They were content on hitting a double.
Yeah.
And if that home run ends up being a strikeout with Philadelphia, then they got it right. But if that guy ends up hitting a home run with Philadelphia, then this is going to be...
How many Russian star doesn't come here to play? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen at one point. So to me, it's not... I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but to me, it's kind of a no-brainer that these guys will one day come to the NHL because they want to play in the best league in the world. So to me, I think Michkov will play in the NHL. But again, I mean, Reinbacher, Max Lapierre, my colleague from TVA Sport.
He loves him.
He loves him. He played in Switzerland, and he said, we got our Alex Pietrangelo. So you know what?
Yeah.
If it's the comparison,
yeah.
I mean, it's a great pick. So, but it's so early. I mean, you never know. So many things can happen. So, it's like we'll see. We'll see. But if Alex Pietrangelo would be, pretty good thing.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Tom Willinder, by the way, goes to the Vancouver Canucks at pick 11. And now Arizona is up with their second pick in the first round so far with pick number 12.
I just want to hear we have a trade to announce. Just one time.
I got to tell you something. Yesterday was cool because there were several trades in the National Hockey League, Yeah. But the NHL, they don't have a flair for the dramatic. Really, they just don't. You have to save some of them. You have to save some of them and say, okay, guys, you know what? We're announcing it on the draft. Like the Dubois trade should have been announced today on draft day.
You remember the Seattle draft when I think it was Ciravelli, he was announcing the picks like a minute before it was announced on stage. So like the TV shows were like, okay, well,
that happens often. It just happened. I was at the NBA draft last week in New York, and there were a couple of reporters who were announcing the picks before they actually happened. And it's very, very easy. It's not because they have a contact with every single team. It's because they have a contact with the TV network or the people that work for the league that get the picks in hand. So it's either one or the other is giving you the names.
I hate it, but you're right. I mean, they should do it like a big show with lots of splashes and but no.
You know what? I don't want to be a hypocrite here because on a couple of occasions I tipped off Canadiens fan base as to who they were going to draft. But I will say this: doing it for one player I find is okay, but when you do it for every single player, look, a member of the media that wants to tell the listeners or the audience who's going to be drafted right before they're drafted, when you get absolutely all of them right, you know what? I know you're not connected to the Montreal Canadiens, to the Buffalo Sabres, to the Boston Bruins, to the Detroit Red Wings, to the Tampa Bay Lightning. You don't have a contact with every single team. You have a contact with the TV network or someone at the league that's getting the names because the names are given. They're on a piece of paper. They're given, and then they're registered with the TV network. And then they have the name before.
Do you think the TV networks were happy with that? I mean, they were pretty pissed with that. Like,
somebody's giving away the info.
Yeah.
And by the way, there's not too many people. It's probably the amount of people that see the pick before it's given off to somebody is probably a good 3 people. So it's one of 3 that keeps leaking to certain members of the media. And certain members of the media that keep on doing it for every pick. Like you got somebody at the TV network or at the league. You don't have someone on every team. You don't have to
I just think it's bad for the networks and it's not fun for the fans. But hey, who am I, right?
No, I absolutely hear you. They drafted by organizational need is what they did.
Pardon me?
They drafted by organizational need.
You mean Montreal?
Yeah. Right-handed defenseman, right? Look who they have.
Yeah.
They don't have too many right-handed defensemen here.
Yeah, but yeah, who? I mean, what? Leonard maybe was the next on their list. I don't know. Maybe, but yeah.
I would
don't know,
think Ryan Leonard was probably next up on their list.
That's my guess. But yeah, it's again, you never have enough good defensemen. So, but yeah, it's surprising because I'm sure a lot of people just like didn't know at all who Reinbacher was. Reminds me of that lady who when KK got drafted. Do you remember? Like
yeah.
She was like,
no, I remember that. But look. Let's be honest. Okay? We all like Kent Hughes. All right, and we all like Jeff Gordon, and we all have confidence in them, and we all have confidence in Marty St. Louis, and we all have confidence in Vinny Lecavalier. All right, we do. And no, I'm not a scout, and no, you're not a scout, but we do talk to a lot of scouts, and we do hear a lot of stuff. Let's put the cards on the table. When the Montreal Canadiens say that they're going to draft the best player available, night they drafted by organizational need. Don't let them tell you otherwise. It's not true. They drafted by organizational need, and they drafted the safest pick in the draft.
Wow.
And you know what? This guy probably goes on to win the Norris, and I hope he does. I hope he ends up being the best player in this draft class after Bedard. I hope so. But they drafted by organizational need tonight.
Well, obviously, if they would have gone for the best player available, it would have been Michkov. That's for sure. But I mean, there's a lot of good people. I mean, Kent Hughes, he knows hockey like from every aspect, every angle. Same with Jeff Gordon, Martin Lapointe, Serge Boisvert, Donald Odette. They're all good hockey people. So I mean, I can't wait to talk to one of them to know, what was the breaking point in the decision or whatever. But again, I was just surprised to hear Daniel Brière saying it was an incredible meeting and it was a no-brainer. He was top 4 because they thought he wouldn't be available. So to me, I'm wondering because 3 years is it's not a lot. When will Reinbacher play? In best case scenario, in 2 years? Like best case scenario.
I'm going to tell you something, okay? I feel very badly for this kid. Very, very badly. If you read social media, the fan base is devastated that they didn't pick Michkov. They're devastated. Even without the information that Hughes has or Gordon has or Nick Bobrov has, the fan base is devastated. And you know what? The kid, Reinbacher, he doesn't deserve this. Like he doesn't, it's so unfortunate. It's the greatest day of his life. Zach Benson falls 13th to Buffalo. That could be a steal in this draft. And, like he's not a big boy, but man, he sure looks happy, huh? Look at him. Good for him. But once I want to get back to Reinbacher for a second, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a good kid. He's put in so much time, so much effort, so much sacrifice. Today is the biggest day and the best day of his life. And the team that drafted you, the fan base is devastated.
Well,
they're upset at the GM. They're upset at his assistant. They're upset at his co-GM or director or VP of hockey. They're upset at everybody.
Well, hopefully he's not going to be on social medias. I mean, if I was a hockey player or if my son was a hockey player, I mean, you just don't go on social media. So that's first. But second of all, the only thing that, he's going to say, I'm going to prove them wrong. That's it. And it's just, he's don't expect like Erik Karlsson. Well, hopefully, but everybody says he's a good defensive defenseman. So you never have too many of those. It's just not the sexiest pick. But again, can end up being a steal. We never know. So,
all right, Askarov and the Canadiens. Do you think something's going to happen?
I mean,
Kevin Weeks brought it up. And
would be. I mean, I'm sure they're looking for something like that to happen for sure. But yeah, I'm trying to.
Daniil Bytt, by the way, went to Arizona 12th before Zach Benson went to Buffalo 13th. And I know that Grant McCagg's a big fan. By the way, Grant's going to join us in about 5 minutes' time, all right? Grant McCagg of Recruits and Recruits.ca will join us in 5 minutes' time. We are going strong here. We started at 7 o'clock. We have about 1,300 and change watching us on YouTube Live right now, plus Facebook, plus Twitter. It's been a pretty good, productive 2 days in a row. And we thank you all very, very much. Tell your friends about it. It's the Sick Podcast. And once again, you can follow us on Facebook Live, Twitter Live, and YouTube Live. And if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so, because it's a beautiful thing for us. All right, okay. You were saying?
I just didn't have the chance to read a lot of, because you're bringing that lot of fans and hockey people were surprised with that pick. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's bad.
I feel bad for the kid, man. I feel bad because, you know, it's easy for us. Our jobs are not on the line, right? Our jobs are not on the line. Like if we're not Kent Hughes, and maybe Michkov never comes over to the National Hockey League, and so if we're Kent Hughes, we probably don't do that. You know, maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't come over in 3 years. Maybe he comes over in 6 years.
That's a possibility.
Maybe we don't take that chance. But, you know, because we're not Kent Hughes and we're here and we're on social media, it's easy for us to say Michkov, but man, I feel bad for the kid. I do.
But
because
my level of trust in Kent Hughes, you know, regarding prospects, regarding, you know, how being so focused on the plan, it tells me that they knew something, or they know something, or they're higher on Reinbacher than people were. So yeah, it's a plan B, that's for sure. But again, you do have to. I trust them. I don't know why, but I just know that Kent Hughes is not a gambler, and he's just sticking with it. So,
all right, okay. Carey Price is trending on Twitter. Yeah, that's not a surprise, I guess, right? Carey Price is trending.
Well, I posted a GIF of Claude Giroux. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, it's gonna stand for what, 10, 15, 20 years, and after that, it's gonna be another one.
You know, Carey's always done stuff to catch our attention, and he did it again tonight.
All right,
okay. Hey, you got some nice color there.
Thank you. Pale blue. Yeah.
No, you got a tan.
Oh yeah, well, you know, lots of golf and spend time with kids outside at the park, and you know, taking care of the garden. Yeah.
All right. We'll we'll talk to you soon.
Can't
thanks
wait.
again, eh? I appreciate it.
Can't wait. Anytime. Right. And yeah, I'll see you later. See everyone.
Merci beaucoup. All right. Okay. Before we get to Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'll tell you that the Murphy Clinic is an aesthetic clinic specializing in medical aesthetic care. They offer permanent laser hair removal, as well as a wide range of treatments for skin problems such as acne, rosacea, fine lines, and more. They currently have 2 clinics, one located in Montreal, Shop Angus, and the second on the North Shore in Terrebonne. They're also opening soon in Quebec City. Visit murphyclinic.ca or on Instagram at Murphy Clinic. So we say hi to them as well. Kyle Dubas is up in the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Grant McCagg will join us in. Let's bring Grant in, as a matter of fact. Grant, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
I'm getting airtime over Kyle Dubas. What's going on, Tony?
Yeah, well, Kyle Dubas just made his pick.
Okay.
And it's Jaeger. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Your thoughts on the pick?
Oh, you can't go wrong with Jaeger. There's been quite a run on centerman. It's been interesting to see that, you know, all these, you know, the value for centerman and defenseman, you're seeing it. You know, just about all of the picks have been one or the other. So no big surprise there. I expect them to go somewhere in the teens. And he's a pretty solid two-way centerman.
All right. Your thoughts on David Reinbacher?
Yeah, well, he's not the sexy pick, obviously, for Habs fans. There aren't that many people excited about it, but it's a process. You're trying to build a winner, and every pick is just one player, and he's a piece of the puzzle. They needed a right defenseman, and they got it. I think the fact that he played against men all year and played like 18 plus minutes, and then played at the World Championships. It was solid against men. The entire season tells you that there's a pile of upside with this kid. And I think the Canadiens believe that, that he may not be Moritz Seider, but, Seider light, you could say, right? So Seider is already one of the best defensemen in the NHL. So if this kid can develop to his potential, I think you try to project lineups and Mayu and Gooley and Hudson and Reinbacher, I think, is what they're hoping down the road. Both pairings complement each other, offense, defense, size. Hudson's going to need a big, rangy guy that can take care of his own end and in front of the net and the boards, and that's going to be Reinbacher. He's there's a pile of potential with this kid, and I know there's worries about his offense, but you can't look at point totals for an 18-year-old kid playing against men, and project that, he didn't have high point totals, so that means he has no offense. That's not the case. I think that's the, that's the unknown part. How much offense will there be? But certainly, he's going to be a minute muncher. He's going to play 20 plus minutes a game, probably in his prime. So I understand why they made the pick.
Is it safe to say, though, that they drafted by organizational need?
By need? Well, they've got a pile of defensemen, Tony. I mean, it's not like they had to take a defenseman. They've got
Not
Mayu. Right. They traded for Byron. They've got Savard. There's no Kovacevic. There was no pressing need to get a right defenseman. But I think they, like all teams that pick in the top 10, they think they're getting the player that's going to help them the most down the road, not because he's a defenseman necessarily. I mean, you take a defenseman because of their value, great value. There's been a defenseman taken in the top 25 of the past, or in the top 5 of the past 25 drafts. And it's for a reason, because forwards aren't going to log 20 minutes a game.
No.
None. So, you get a kid.
Draisaitls of this world, yes, but other than that, no.
Well,
right.
You know what I mean. Like not enough 5th overall picks. The 5th overall picks don't log 20 minutes a game at forward. Like, you can't name too many.
Well, no, you can't name too many. Jagger did, but you can't name too many. You're right.
Yeah, was he 5th overall?
Yeah,
he was a bit of a steal.
Yeah, he was a steal. Yeah.
And when all you can think of is one guy,
No, you're right. Listen,
you're
right. You're 100% right. You're 100%
so
right.
I mean, yeah. So I completely understand the pick, and I also understand why people, you want the points. You want that's forwards. You get more points from forwards, but you also need defense. You got to keep the puck out of your own net, and I think he'll also help offensively. The kids, they did their homework on him, everybody talks about the interviews with him and what he accomplished this year, and what, going from Austria to play in Switzerland, and just complete character. He just soaks everything in. Like the coaches there can't say enough about just how quick a learner he is, and how, and it's all about development too, right? The next 2 or 3 years, you're trying to draft players that you think are going to develop the most, because you're picking these guys for 2-3 years down the road. And Reinbacher is one of those guys that just he could be just a terrific defenseman. So there's no holes in his game. So I like the pick.
Good. I'm happy to hear it because I was mentioning before, like, I feel bad for the kid because on social media, Wood goes 15 to Nashville, by the way. On social media, the poor kid is just, I hope for him he stays away from social media tonight and tomorrow because it's a fan base that for the most part is absolutely dejected. But you are not surprised the Canadiens did not draft Matvei Michkov. You told us for a while now that based on what you were hearing, they were not going in that direction, and they didn't.
Right. And no, I mean, my first mock draft for the guide, I had Reinbacher going to the Habs, and I ended up changing it. Certainly, in looking at social media and too, and I mean, it just from the start when I first threw it out there a month or two ago, like I don't know that anybody else really was saying it. The reaction for the past month has been negative for the most part about Reinbacher, but some people have come around. You got the pockets of people, and let's hope that the honeymoon isn't over for Hughes. Funny, it doesn't take that long, eh? 2 drafts, and by the second one, if you're not picked, they passed over Wright last year. Well, he got a mulligan because they were new, but now taking Reinbacher instead of Michkov. The honeymoon's over officially, I think, for a lot of fans with Kent Hughes.
It's just that, once again, it could end up being the right picks, but they're not the sexy picks.
Right.
They're not the sexy picks. Like guys like Cooley could end up being a guy that ends up exploding at the National Hockey League level, and Michkov could end up exploding at the National Hockey League level. But look, I understand it. Nick Bobrov's track record, how would you grade him? Probably a tough question for me to ask you, but being a former scout yourself, it's probably hard to start talking about other former scouts, but I'll ask you anyway. How would you grade Bobrov's track record, not only with the Canadiens, but based on everything he's done in the National Hockey League as a scout?
Well, like I think so far with Montreal, which is the pertinent thing, I think his draft record has been excellent. I like their picks last year, and I like Reinbacher picks. So
okay,
that's what counts, right? I mean, you evolve as a scout. Certainly Gorton has known him since the Boston days, and there were some good picks there. I can't say that I've studied his every pick with every team that he's made and graded, just how good but obviously you look at Kravtsov that, didn't work out in New York. So, we've talked about this before, Tony. Every team has missed with top 10 picks, and that includes everybody was taking Kakko number 2, so I'm not going to be overly critical of that he hasn't panned out yet like he should have. But I don't know of any scouts that didn't have Kaapo Kakko number 2, big kid that did everything in his draft year. He just hasn't developed, so I don't think his previous draft record with Europeans was great. So, but Bobrov's not making the pick. He's like a third, not even a third of the influence on. Like he's living in Boston, right? He's not sitting over in Europe. He didn't get to see Reinbacher any more than Marty Lapointe did, and I think what we're seeing with the Canadiens is that Hughes is having a say in their top picks. He was over at the World Championships last year. Who was at the World Championships last year? Slavkovsky. He was over at the World Championships this year. You know, interviewed at games. He was interviewed at games last year when the Slovakia was playing. You notice the games that he was interviewed, you know, who was playing this year at Austria?
Reinbacher.
Right. So, you know, I think the GM is, and rightfully so, you know, he's, I mean, it's his job on the line ultimately.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, you don't during the season, the GM doesn't get to, you know, he's busy with the team, but but the season's over. GMs get to see these guys at World Championships. You know, that's the kind of the pocket, you know, the Memorial Cup, you see them there because the season's usually over unless they're in the Cup finals or whatever. And you see them at World Championships looking at the few guys that are draft eligible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just so happens that, you know, the 2 picks that they made were very impactful at the World Championships at both. So, you know, I think Marty has a big say. I think Reinbacher's a Marty Lapointe type of pick.
Yeah.
And I think Hughes has a big say. And I imagine Bobrov as well. So I'm not going to sit back and speculate that this is a Bobrov pick or what have you. I'm, you know, any more picks there, Tony?
Well, no, Calgary Flames are up at the podium right now. But I'll say this, I'm not going to speculate that it's a Bobrov pick, but I will speculate that not going with Michkov was a Bobrov pick because, of course, his intel with Scott. That's, you know, but I don't know that for a fact. That's just my gut and trying to connect the dots, right? So Craig Conroy is up, general manager of the Calgary Flames, and Honzek is the pick.
Has Gabe Perreault not gotten selected yet?
No, he has not.
That one surprised me because every scout that I talked to had him top 10.
That's Yannick's son who played on that famous line with the U.S. National Development Program with Will Smith and with Ryan Leonard.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he has dropped. I mean, it's a, you know, you're seeing a lot of size here, right?
Yeah.
You know, Benson didn't go top 12. Michkov didn't go top 5. Perreault hasn't gone yet, and they're up to 16 when NHL guys had him, lots of them have him ranked top 8 or 9. So, you know, it was size that won at playoff time again for the most part. And I think teams are always influenced by that. And right now, they're certainly not picking the smaller guys higher than they're ranked. That's for sure.
You know, I wonder if what the price to pay would be for the Canadiens if they inquired right now about moving up and jumping on a pick right now and drafting an offensive player, because once again, for the fan base, they're dying for an offensive player here. And if you draft Yannick's son, you know, who put up the numbers that he did with the U.S. National Development Program, it could probably give you a little bit of reprieve. But anyway, hey, Grant, this is a little bit unconventional, but I'm going to do it anyway, okay? So in radio, you have commercial breaks, right? We call them P breaks. In television, you have commercial breaks. We call them P breaks. In podcasting, we don't have the benefit of having commercial breaks, all right? So if someone like me has to pee, well, he can't. Unless I can leave it to you. So this is what I want to do. Okay. If you can help me out here, you need to help me out here. I need an assist from you here. I'm going to bring up your top 32 picks that you have. Okay. And there we go. Here's your top 32 picks. All right. From recruits and recruits.ca and Grant's independent scouting service. And you can have your draft coverage. You can have all the articles that come with it during the year as well. And Grant, the last time you were telling me a subscription for everything, like the platinum package is how much per year?
$34.99.
$35 for the platinum package per year, folks. It's an absolute steal. You have Adam Fantilli on your list at number 2, and he went number 3. And you had Dalibor Dvorsky at number 3. He went a lot later than that. Can you just talk to us about Anaheim going with Karlsson over Fantilli, and why do you think that is? And talk to us about why you think Dvorsky slipped. And I'll be back in 20 seconds. Can we pull that off?
Sure.
You're a good man. Do that.
Okay. Welcome to Grant's Sick Podcast. Adam Fantilli, that was a surprise for me that Anaheim passed on him. I just thought going forward, a duo of Fantilli and McTavish is just custom made for playoff success. And I'm not picturing Leo Karlsson being a great playoff player, but certainly he's got the size, the offensive skills, and smarts to be a good NHLer. And maybe he figures out the competitive end of things. But for me, there's no comparison between Adam Fantilli and Leo Karlsson when it comes to grit, speed, competitiveness, and defensive play. So I was a little surprised by the Leo Karlsson pick, but I think what we're seeing in this draft and what's being demonstrated is that they're going. They want offensive producers, regular season offensive producers. They'll get you. I guess they get you into the playoffs, and then whatever happens after that, right? And I kind of get it, but at the same time, I think Fantilli can score every bit as much as Karlsson or more, and then bring so many other things to the table. So that pick shocked me. And Dvorsky not going where I had him, that doesn't shock me. We saw him on lists anywhere from 7 to 10 a lot of the year, and I guess NHL teams didn't warm up to him as quickly as I did, and some of my scouting friends who I had one who his two favorite players, and it was the same with me, were Dvorsky and Leonard. Not saying that he had them 1-2, but just love the way they both play. And I'm of the same opinion, and I think they're going to help a team win. And ultimately, I believe you take top 10 picks because you want them to help you win. And I think it's the reason why Reinbacher got picked by the Habs top 10. I mean, I have him ranked 6, so taking him at 5, that it certainly doesn't outrage me. And I mean, the guy, I had Michkov ahead of him, but I didn't expect him to go ahead of him. So, Reinbacher going to the Canadiens at 5 I think is more than fine as a selection.
All right. Okay. Daniil Bytt, by the way, I know you had him 10th on your list, and there's some scouting services that had him like 25th, 26th, 27th. You're very, very high on him, and clearly so was Arizona.
Yeah. Well, when I was doing my mock-up, I thought long and hard about it, and I looked at Armstrong. He was with St. Louis when they picked Tarasenko 13th overall, and at the time nobody was taking Russians that high. I think there'd been a couple of flameouts. So, you remember Filatov?
Yeah,
going 6 to Columbus.
Nikita.
That was a bust. So I think teams kind of backed off of Russians for a while there, but he was part of the, him and Jarmo Kekalainen actually were the two big decision makers, and they chose Tarasenko. So I think, he's not afraid to take Russians, and they took a couple last year as well. So I had Michkov going to Arizona at 6. And as it turned out, they took a Russian at 6, but it was the surprise so far of the first round. Fair to say that Simashev went ahead of Michkov.
Yeah, I'm reading on social media. I think it was Greg Wyshynski who tweeted out that Michkov was asked about the talk that he was saying to some teams that he wasn't going to meet with some teams and stuff like that, and he said through an interpreter that it's clearly just not true. He said that he met with every team. He met with every team.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like, how many in the last 15, 20 years, how many top 10 picks needed an interpreter? I was trying to think. I'd have to go back through and have a look, but
did Kostitsa need one?
I'm not thinking there was too many. Well, that was 20 years ago now.
Yeah, you're right. That was the 2003 draft. You're right.
Yeah. But in the last 10, 15 years, there haven't been too many. Like, none off the top of my head that I can think of, I don't know if that had any influence on teams, but I got told a couple of things, and that he was not a beloved teammate, put it that way. Some guys that played with him in the past, and teams, especially on these Russian kids, when they didn't get to see them or talk to them much, really had to do their homework on that sort of stuff. And it's a part of the puzzle. It's an important thing for a lot of teams, where you don't want someone that's unpopular. And I mean, we saw it, with PK. It was one of the reasons why he got traded. Because his teammates weren't crazy about him. So
yeah.
And if you think it can hurt team chemistry, it's part of the factor too. You're picking top 5, top 6, top 7. You don't want too many red flags. And certainly,
as much as some teammates didn't appreciate him or didn't think he was a great teammate, I also think that in there lies a little bit of envy for a player who was the fan favorite. And if you want to be the fan favorite and that player is the fan favorite, sometimes it rubs some players the wrong way. I think there's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, I can't tell you what I was told, but let's just say that
Look, we heard that he was sent out to Sochi because some people couldn't stand him with Ska.
Well, yeah, and I've had it confirmed. So yeah, it's not just an isolated incident, and I don't think that it's untrue. Some kids are prima donnas. I mean, you see it with some American kids, especially, and I'm sure it's the same with Russians. So I just think the Canadiens, especially, from what I understand, they want to have a hand in development, and with the Russian kids, especially Michkov, he didn't even play for like you said, he got sent off to Sochi, so he didn't even play for the team that he signed with.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any 18 to 21 is so important. We saw a player like Louis LeBlanc. How much did he develop over a 3-year? He didn't. So how much developing will Michkov do over the next 3 years? Will he pick up worse habits playing in the KHL, not playing North American style, not playing in North American rinks? Will the adaptation be, seamless for him when he comes over?
Yeah.
It may take a year or two, and he may fall out of favor with a coach. And we saw it with Nail Yakupov, all the talent in the world, 5'10" Russian winger that fell out of favor with his coaches. Coaches didn't like the way he played. He was a little selfish. Hearing that about Michkov, you have to balance the floor against the ceiling. It can't just be, well, who cares what the floor is? Who cares if he might bust? Well, you got to care about it, especially when you're picking top 10. I noticed Pelika just went to Detroit.
Yeah, he did. Steve Yzerman grabs the guy who's touted as a top 2 defenseman in this draft class, Sandin Pelika.
And their first pick was Danielson.
Their first pick was Danielson. So they went with the centerman and they went with a defenseman.
Detroit likes to, they always have a different list. You know, they're not picking the players that you expect them to take as a rule. So,
but they picked a defenseman who ended up being pretty good. You talked about him, of course, in Mort Sider, and now Yzerman ends up picking Sandin
exactly.
Pellikka. Some Canadiens fans are probably going to be a little bit uneasy about this right now, saying, "Oh no, is that the guy?" Maybe they're both the guys.
What's that?
Talking about Reinbacher and Sandin Pellikka. Some people's lists have Sandin Pellikka ahead of David Reinbacher. Talk to me on your list. We know that Reinbacher is way ahead of Sandin Pellikka. Talk to us about the differences that you see in both players.
Tony, from the second round of the playoffs on, there were 2 5'11" defensemen that played. Out of the 48 defensemen that played from the second round of the NHL playoffs on, there were 2 that were 5'11" or smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Obviously,
do you want to win in the playoffs? Well, you pick a David Reinbacher. Do you want a pretty skating defenseman, 5'11"? You take Sandin Pellikka. There may have been some lists that had Pellikka that high. Certainly, the 6 scouts that I talked to quite a bit, none of them had him top 15. So the fact that he went 17 certainly doesn't surprise me. Some scouts I know had him in the second round. So all over the map with him. Maybe he's one of those 5'11" defensemen that makes it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be pretty dynamic. He's not Cale Makar. And there aren't many Cale Makars. So, again, Detroit needs talent. And, no doubt that, 5'11" Swedish defenseman, they're going to hope, maybe he can be a shorter version of Lidstrom or something like that, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, they have just like them taking Casper top 10 last year. It surprised me. Again, I'm not going to criticize it, to any certain extent, because Sider is a good example. He worked out. He worked out just fine. I thought they took Edmondson too high too, but time will tell on these guys. You're going to have hits and misses, and I wouldn't doubt that a couple of their picks in recent years aren't nearly as good as others, but they already have a home run with Sider and Raymond, who I didn't like at 5, but hey, you couldn't argue with his rookie season, right? He put up big points.
Yeah.
He kind of regressed a little bit last year, but certainly a super talented kid too. So they're taking talent, getting talent, and they needed it. So there's a fit there, even with Sandin Pellikka. They'll find a spot for him.
All right, okay. The Winnipeg Jets are up, and we'll see what they do with their first pick. And once again, we talked about it. Gabriel Perreault, Yannick's son, is still available, and we'll see if he goes next.
Barlow hasn't been picked yet. Oliver Moore hasn't been picked yet. And Perreault. Those are 3 guys that I think you can expect to see coming off the board here pretty soon. All 3 of those guys.
Let's take your list off screen right now. We'll get back to it a little bit later on if we can.
Sure.
Kevin Cheveldayoff, who seems relieved to have received the return that he did for a player who wanted out in Pierre-Luc Dubois yesterday. Got himself a left winger, a centerman, a right winger, and a second-round pick. It's Barlow. Barlow's his pick.
Yeah, well, that's a solid pick at 18. They seem to always get guys that drop to him that, you're a little surprised that they get. So
talk again about Barlow.
46 goals in the OHL, great at the Ivan Helenka last summer. Penalty killer, scored a lot of shorthanded goals this year. Just a sniper.
Yeah.
You get him a good center, feed him the puck, like I don't know, maybe a Gabe Velarde or Perfetti. Perfetti's a fantastic playmaker. There's I think there's a fit with Perfetti going forward with those two together. With Perfetti's sense and vision and playmaking, and Barlow's sniping ability, they're going to score a lot of power play goals, just like they have in the past few years.
Oliver Moore, you brought up a name. His skating's exceptional, is it not?
Yeah, a lot of guys think that he might be the best skater in the draft.
Wow.
So, but I mean, we've seen guys like that. Rico Fata, name from the past. Calgary.
Rico Fata was a great skater, but he didn't have a very good NHL career.
No, you remember? Yeah, you're old enough to remember Rico Fata. Eh?
Yeah, I remember Rico Fata.
Yeah. Well, 6th overall to Calgary.
Didn't he play in the WHL?
Fly. He could just fly, but wasn't the smartest, And you gotta have some hockey sense. And I'm not saying that Moore doesn't have hockey sense. Just guys picked ahead of him are, have a little more creativity to their game and maybe a little more upside when it comes to creating offense. So that was a knock on him, and you're seeing him slide.
Rico Fata was OHL, right? He was OHL. He was OHL.
Rico Fata was OHL. That's right.
Yeah. 6th
Yeah.
overall.
I think that was it. Yeah, if I recall correctly.
That was the Vinny LeCavalier draft.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, Vinny LeCavalier. Yeah.
Did he go 6?
Hold on. Rico Fata, 6th overall. Vinny LeCavalier, David Legwand, Brad Stewart, Brian Allen, Vitaly Vishnevsky, Rico Fata.
Okay.
Manny
How many
Malhotra,
points? Is it hockey
Rico
DB?
Fata, 63 points in 230 games. 63 points.
For a top 6. But David Reinbacher is going to score more than 63 points, Tony.
Yeah, but you know that he was better than they were. Rico Fata was a much better pick than Montreal's 16th Eric Chouinard. 90 games, 22 points. That's it. That's all. Salut la visite. Bonsoir. Ciao, ciao. Je suis parti.
Instead of Simon Gagne, who was his teammate.
His teammate, of course, with the Quebec Ramparts.
They went and scouted those guys all year and then picked the wrong guy.
That's unbelievable.
That's Gagne when we knew that they had to make some changes in the scouting staff.
Gagne went 22nd to the Philadelphia Flyers back then.
Yeah.
What years did you work for the Canadiens again?
I'd rather not say.
Okay.
Because you'll look it up and
there's a couple of
you're like that, Tony.
There's a couple of picks not too fond of, or what? A couple of picks you regret?
Well,
don't worry about it. I won't shove it down your throat. It's a team effort, right? You're not the only one.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I was part-time scout. I didn't, I wasn't even at the meetings, so it's not like I had any say in what was going on. But that was the Louis LeBlanc draft.
Yeah.
And the Tenorti, I guess, the year after.
I think the Louis LeBlanc pick was kind of like a Pierre Boivin pick.
Yeah. No, I don't, Trevor's guy that year was Kreider. If it had been up to just Trevor, I'm pretty sure that would have been who he picked, but there was definitely
pressure.
There was definitely pressure to take LeBlanc. But in his defense too,
that's great.
I mean, Bob McKenzie had him.
The Montreal Canadiens, run by Le Fils de la Langue Française, just really, really good. That's just great. That's great. And not only that, if they would have picked Kreider, he wouldn't have ran into Carey Price's knee, and the Canadiens probably would have won the Stanley Cup. That's
right.
Karma for you. That's the karma for you. Louis. Trevor, you got to take Louis.
He never gained an ounce of muscle, I don't think, And I mean, there was an example. He was, I talked to a bunch of, like Andre Tournier was a QMA Q coach at the time, and Guy Boucher was a Q coach. I'd known those guys for years. They just as passionate as I am about the draft and hockey, and we talked prospects all the time back then, and I knew they'd both make good NHL coaches if they got the chance. And the most competitive guy I've ever come across, I think was Boucher. Like, just couldn't say enough. Yeah. So everyone expected that he'd just be a gym rat, Yeah. If he was most competitive on the ice, as a rule, you're going to put in the work off the ice too. And man, I remember seeing the picture of him on the beach with Eugenie Bouchard. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
And he was skinny as a rail. And this was a year or two after he'd been drafted. And it's like, oh boy, you did not spend much time in the gym, sir.
No, I hear you. I'm just a little bit distracted and rattled because you brought up Eugenie's name. But anyway, let's go back to the draft with Kyle Davidson, general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks, set to make pick number 19 in the draft.
Oliver Moore.
There you have it.
There he goes.
We talked about him. Hey, by the way, did you see a podcaster who was stopping people in the streets of Nashville and asking them their name and where they're from, how much they know about hockey, and asking them a couple of hockey questions? Did you
Kyle
see that?
Davidson.
He stopped Kyle Davidson, the GM of the Chicago Blackhawks. He said, "What's your name, Kyle? Where are you from?" Chicago.
Hilarious.
And asked him some hockey questions. It is really, really funny. He didn't know who he
was.
Well,
did he look like a GM?
He didn't look like a GM. Dressed in his casual attire, he really did not look. You know what?
He's 34.
I would have got it wrong too.
Yeah. I wouldn't have known. I didn't know what he looked like. He'd have fooled me too, even. Yeah. So, yeah, I can't. I got to cut a break. But I thought Davidson handled it hilariously. It was very funny. Everyone's got to see that, But Moore and Bedard, whoo.
Yeah.
That's an injection of speed and skill with those two guys.
Yeah, and you got yourself a centerman, you got yourself a winger, unless the plans are for Connor Bedard to be playing center in the National Hockey League. I asked Kyle Woodlief of the Red Line Report earlier where he would play Connor Bedard. He says he would play him at right wing. Grant, where would you play him?
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. Yeah, I think ideally you don't want him even thinking about, cover the point man in the defensive zone. Other than that, score, create offense, like Mitch Marner does. Mitch Marner create offense on the wing? He played, did Guy Lafleur create offense on the wing? No, Bedard, well, at one of our first podcasts of the year, remember I said, well, he never plays center for Canada he's never played center for Canada. He's always on the wing. How'd he do on the wing, Tony? He wasn't too bad at the World Juniors, eh?
He was unbelievable. He was absolutely unbelievable.
So I mean, he's not a big kid. There are how many centers under 5'10" who are top two centers in the league? There aren't very many. So I certainly would start him off on the wing if their plan is to have him on the team, and of course it is, because he can score 80 points this year and win the Calder. I can see that happening for sure. Well, start him off on the wing, and if his defensive game comes to, and he gets big enough, strong enough, and learns the system well enough under Luke Richardson that he's comfortable with him at center in the future, that's fine. But I wouldn't be surprised if Luke, who's old school, starts him off on the wing, kind of like Sagan and a few others that eventually became centers. But he could be so good on the wing and so effective on the wing that he may never move him back to center. It depends. It's going to depend on their fits. And yeah, I could see him. They took Nazar last year.
Yeah.
And Moore this year. That's maybe the two fastest centers in the last two drafts. Moore could also end up on the wing. I've heard, there's a lot of scouts that wonder if he may not be best suited, just utilizing that speed and energy going up and down the wing. So they'll have options going forward. Lucas Reichel's the same deal. I think he can play. He can play either as well. And it's like that with Alex Newhook. And you see people talking about it, and tweeting and, they got too many centers now. Dvorak's got to go. Well, I mean, Doc's a 40% face-off guy. Newhook for his career so far is 42%. You're not putting those two guys at center yet. Maybe one, have the other guy, and they're situational. I was looking at their stats and where they were best. Doc's a lot better in the offensive zone, and Newhook's a lot better in the defensive zone. So maybe if they end up playing together, you have Doc taking the offensive zone faceoffs and vice versa. So the more centers you have, they can always be switched to the wing. You don't worry about how many centers you have. The easiest transition for an NHL player is to go from center to the wing, because your job basically is to go up and down that wing. And when you're in the defensive zone, you make sure that the defenseman doesn't get the puck, or you're not. If he does, then you're in the lane to prevent him from shooting and passing. So it's pretty basic. And, I have no issue. There's a pile of teams that half or more of their players were natural centers when they were drafted, and they end up, a bunch of them end up on the wing. So.
Yeah. Hey, I just came across something that if I've asked Shane Gaumont and Master Control if he could actually bring it up, and we'll show it when he can. It'll be pretty cool. And if all goes well, Tony Ferrari will join us of the Hockey News in just a second here. But it's a picture that was tweeted. It's a picture that was tweeted by. Let me just see. I just retweeted it. Aaron Portzline, who covers the Columbus Blue Jackets. All right. Of course, Aaron Portzline with the Athletic, and we know that Adam Fantilli was selected 3rd overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and your bud Trevor Timmins, huh?
Yeah.
Did you see that one coming, or you thought Fantilli was going number 2 to? Did you think Fantilli was going number 2 to Anaheim?
Kevin, are you talking to me?
Yeah, no, I'm talking to you. I'm saying, did you see Fantilli went number 3 to Columbus? Yeah. Did you think he was going number 2 to Anaheim?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And if he was going number 2 to Anaheim, who did you think Columbus was going to draft at number 3? Carlson?
I really wasn't sure.
Okay.
It was probably Carlson or Smith, but I do know that Trevor does not mind that. There's Sally off the board. Okay.
Yeah, Sally to the Seattle Kraken.
Trevor. I don't think Trevor's too upset that, or any of them are too upset that Fantilli dropped to 3. Put it that way.
Shane, not sure if Shane has the picture. If he doesn't, you know what? It's okay if he doesn't, because this is what I'll do. I'll just bring it up myself. Okay. This is what I'll do. Look at this. Do you see that? See that? See the vest?
Oh, it's pretty cool. Was it like a Nashville type?
No. So what it is Adam Fantilli has a vest, and on the vest and on the lining of his suit, he actually has the names of 140 people that have come across his young career and have had a positive impact, whether it's coaches, teachers, or anyone. So had his suit custom made for the draft, says Aaron Portzline, with all the names of the family, coaches, teachers, advisors, and others who have impacted his life and helped pave his path to the NHL. Over 140 names listed on the back of his vest and lining in his jacket.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Did you see his interview, Tony? Just what a super kid. I've heard nothing but good things about him. He just all lives and breathes hockey. And I was actually, I was shocked that Anaheim passed on him. I think they overthought it. There's just no comparison in the competitiveness in Karlsson and Fantilli. And I mean, he led college in scoring as a freshman. Like, do they not think that he has as much offensive ups? He's got a better shot. He's faster than Karlsson. Like, he plays the pro NHL game way better than Karlsson. Yeah, he's not as smart as Karlsson, but geez, I don't understand why they passed on him. I really don't.
I hear you. Okay, if all goes well, once again, Tony Ferrari is going to join in about a minute or two. The player that was just selected, Saleh.
Yeah.
I've heard some people like really, really high on him. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah. Well, I know Craig Button kept him top 10. I don't know that many that are really high on him, but certainly Craig obviously never waned from his, he had him top 10 early on, and he never dropped him despite disappointing tournament after disappointing tournament. Like, I don't know how you can't be concerned about his competitiveness, play away from the puck, desire. You can have all the skill in the world, Tony, but if you're not trying out there, you're not, we've seen it 40, 50 years. There's been skilled kids that just didn't have this. And that's a real question mark with that kid. So I don't care how skilled he is. If he doesn't change his game around like a 180 degree, I'm leery with that pick. But Seattle, they took Wright, and they're taking potential. They're taking skill. I guess if they think they can teach these guys how to compete harder, then they might have 2 home runs there. So I get it. And if there's a team where it's probably good for Chalet to go, it would be Seattle, where I don't think the spotlight is going to be on him too heavy.
Yeah.
He may crack the lineup fairly soon because they're not that deep with talent. So that's an interesting pick for them.
Yeah, Minnesota is up with pick number 21. Grant, do you want to stay with us, or do we touch base with you again in about 30 minutes for about 5 minutes, and we'll wrap this baby up?
Tony, I don't mind staying. You're getting the picks here coming in. So
okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
Bill Guerin, 21, Minnesota Wild.
That's a good pick, Guerin.
Byron was a good pick.
Perreault hasn't gone yet, eh?
Perreault has not gone yet.
Wow.
Perreault is not. Stramel is the pick.
Oh my goodness. People going with size.
Let's bring up your list again. Your top 32.
I have.
Is he there?
Stramel at 45. So, like those 2 picks in a row, Stramel and Chalet were both top 10 going into the year.
Mm-hmm.
And they just had completely disappointing seasons. But
wow,
these guys are getting drafted on their size and their previous, pedigree. So I was told that Stram will probably go in the first round, but the guys that told me that also said they wouldn't touch him in the first round. So once you get into the 20s, especially, all bets are off. You're going to get guys that you're soon going to get guys that are probably ranked in my 3rd round, that go. So, every pick so far has been in my top 45, so nothing outrageous, but I'm still surprised that Perreault sitting there. My 9th overall pick is sitting there. Not surprised by Edstrom. I've professed since day one that that's my sleeper pick, and no one's gonna take him that high. But Perreault, that one's surprising me. I think he's all it takes is these teams to have one. Like, I bet you there's a lot of teams that have him top 15.
Yeah.
And all it takes is them to have a guy one ahead, right? And that's you see it every year with one or two players.
But can it be, Grant, can it be that a lot of people or a lot of teams are actually looking at him and thinking that he was the benefactor of playing with two pretty good players? Can that be? And that, his point totals are probably inflated because he played with two really good players?
He made them really good players too. Like, they
listen, it's usually the way it works. You're right.
There were a lot of nights when, like, I had one scout, especially, that he ended up having him ahead of Leonard on his list, and said, he's outplaying these guys. Just about every time I go to see them, he's the best of the three. He's so smart.
The best
Such
of the
a
three.
good playmaker. Wow. He's not that small, he's not a great skater, but he's 5, he's the same height as the other two kids, basically, a little, a quarter inch or half an inch shorter or something like that. That one's surprising me because, I don't rank anybody in the top 10 without having some backing, and I certainly had backing on him. A main reason why I put him in there was because all my scouting friends really liked him. So that one, usually when 6 out of 6 like a guy, he's going close to where you rank him. So that one is surprising me. But it's a case of one of those kids that just takes one other guy ahead of on the team list, and like I say, I bet you out of the 22 teams so far, 20 of them have had him top 15, but that doesn't mean you're right. But they had another kid higher that dropped to them. So it happens every year.
Hey, on Montreal's 5th pick overall, David Reinbacher, Arpin Basu of The Athletic tweets out, David Reinbacher's coach, Jeff Tomlinson, and GM Larry Mitchell in Cloton said they felt he would be drafted somewhere between 4 and 8 based on conversations they had with clubs. So him going at number 5 was no surprise. I spoke to a lot of people from Arizona, Mitchell added, and this probably answers my question, which was, couldn't you have made a trade and still got Reinbacher a couple of picks down the road? And I guess the answer to that is they probably feared that Arizona would take him next, Grant.
Yeah, there was talk of that. It's funny. I asked Andre about a week ago if he saw Reinbacher at the Worlds, because he was there, right, coaching Canada. He's no, they're in the other division, eh? And okay. But I told him that I really liked the kid, and I was really impressed with him at the World Championships, eh? And said, well, I think Montreal might take him at 5. Said, well, then forwards dropped to us, and they ended up taking us a defenseman too, right? So they had such a need for defense. They really did. I don't. With them trading away Chychrun.
Yeah, Jacob Chychrun,
they really are in need of a top pairing guy. And I mean, there goes Bonk. Philly. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Talk to me about him.
Oh, just solid right defenseman. Got the prototypical size. Decent skater, smart, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Chipped in a little offense.
Radek's son, by the way, played for the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators.
And London, that London factory, right? Teams love the Dale Hunter coached prospects, and you know that he's just going to get better the next 2 years. So there's always a need for right defenseman that you think can perhaps play on your second pairing. That's just such a valuable piece.
All right, I'm glad you're sticking around because it didn't work out for Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News. And Grant, well, one of the things I'm hearing is that the Wi-Fi inside the Bridgestone Arena has been very, very problematic for a lot of members of the media. It's just been very, very weak and unstable, and that probably would explain it. It seems like some people are logging on and some people are not able to connect, and that's that. But you know what? We'll take a rain check with Tony. That's not a problem.
I stuck around for a reason then.
You stuck around for a reason. I'm happy you did. Imagine you would have been gone by now.
Yeah, and you had to take another pee break. You'd have been.
Yeah, he's a pretty big boy, eh?
What's that?
He's got nice size, Bunk. I'm looking at him up on stage.
Oh yeah. No. Good size kid, and good kid.
Okay, so I have to ask you this because the TV just showed a picture of his father, Radek, again. You, as a former NHL scout, bloodlines, knowing that the son of a former NHLer is draft eligible, how much does that weigh into the equation?
I don't know. We've seen sons of, how did Jared Tenorti turn out,
Yeah.
There's hits and misses with the sons of. So, if you study your past history on that, it doesn't always necessarily work out.
No, but
Nolan Patrick was the son of a, hockey player and went third overall. I hope they didn't draft him because his dad was a good hockey player,
Yeah. I think he went second overall, actually.
I had him ranked third overall. That's right.
But his
took a lot of guff for that. There's no way
his career was shortened due to concussions. I mean, it's probably
it's so far concussions and him not working out at the gym and being a bit of a prima donna and not putting in the work. And if he'd have got stronger and worked hard in the off season, he may not have gotten those concussions either. So I mean, you can use concussion to a certain degree, but he didn't have concussions the whole time, and there were certainly red flags from day one after they picked him where he just didn't put in the work. The record work off ice.
We're going to put the cards on the table here. Are you ready?
Sure.
This draft is boring, man. This draft is boring.
Okay.
Like, nobody's getting traded. Nobody's doing
it happens just about every draft. And you think I get fooled every year. I get asked, are there going to be trades in the top 10? This year I think there will be. And again, it's not like the NBA draft or the NFL draft, right?
No, but you're Grant, you're the commissioner of the National Hockey League. You're Gary Bettman, okay? You're behind all the other sports in North America, okay? You're even behind some sports at the collegiate level, okay? You're going on TV. This is a big, big day for the National Hockey League, right? The draft is a big day. July 1st is a big day. All-Star Weekend is a big day. Opening night is a big day. Start of the playoffs is a big day. NHL trade deadline day is a big day. And the night the Stanley Cup comes out are big days, okay? There's about 8 days that are bigger than others at the end of the year as far as the National Hockey League is concerned, okay? The draft is way, way up there. It's one of the biggest days of the year because the draft starts at 7 and media outlets, radio and television start their coverage probably about an hour before. Okay. So it's big. And the coverage goes on for about 3 to 4 hours. So it's 4 hours of radio, 4 hours of television, 4 hours of podcasting, or at the very minimum, 3 hours. Okay.
Got it. Yep.
You got to have all the GMs, all the directors of scouting on a Zoom call and say, guys, I'm not going to force you to do something. Can we try to make this as entertaining as possible, please? Like, give them some kind of incentive. Give them come up with something on the cap, come up with a bonus a bonus cushion on the cap or something. If a team makes a trade on trade deadline on draft day, Perreault, by the way, there you go, 23 to the Rangers.
Yo, Perreault, finally my top 10's gone. Yeah. So 17 of my top 18 are gone now in the top 23. So that's, that's about what I expected. I was not anticipating, like I say, Edstrom to go as high as I have him, but I certainly Perreault. I'm a bit shocked that he didn't go till 23. But geez, the Rangers. That's a nice. That's a nice ad for them, boy.
That's a nice.
They'll fit
ad
in
for
nice
the
there.
Yeah, really, eh?
Yeah, I really like that. And Richie's still. It's going to be interesting to see where Richie goes. Geez, he was another guy, Tony, that at the first of the year, you look at these guys. Will Smith wasn't top 10. You had Bedard, Fantilli, Dvorsky, Carlson, Michkov.
Kid's got a nice style. I like the suit.
Yager, Richie. Those were guys that were considered top 10, and maybe Benson, and they've all dropped. So, a few guys like Saleh dropped. Richie's not, hasn't been taken yet. It'll be interesting to see where he goes, and a few of these guys have dropped. It's weird that Perreault, he was thought as a riser, the second half of the year, and usually those guys, if they're risers, it was like Willander. I was not surprised at all that he went where he did, because at the end of the year he was rising, and those guys typically just keep on climbing, like Casper last year.
Yeah. And listen, and if you're watching this and looking at the Montreal Canadiens and saying, couldn't they have made a move? They probably could have. The challenge is when they made the move yesterday for Newhook, they got rid of picks 31 and 37.
Right.
So now their next pick is 69. They pick 5th and 69.
Well, I think fans have to be excited about, you look at the big picture. This isn't just, they didn't just leave the draft with Reinbacher. They left the draft with a kid that was top 16 pick 2019, who scored 100 points in his draft year, who went to college and was 7th in the league in scoring as a freshman. Second year, he was 7th overall in points per game. So, yeah, he went to Colorado, a team that won a cup in his first year, and he wasn't a prime piece. Well, that's because they were really good. Same deal last year. He didn't put up huge numbers, but he wasn't given an offensive role, an offensive opportunity. He played with Evan Rodriguez most of the year.
Yeah.
Well, he's not going to be playing with Evan Rodriguez in Montreal. He's going to be given better offensive line mates, and he's going to be put in the power play. He's going to be given offensive opportunities. He's going to get tutelage from Marty St. Louis, who
is that your dog?
We saw with we got a barking puppy here.
Yeah,
that we saw with
no. Let me see him. Let me see him. Can I see the puppy?
Oh no, he's too big. He's too big to. Just a sec. Hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
It's okay.
Enough.
It's okay.
I have to chastise him there.
No. He just wants a little bit of playtime. That's okay.
Well, he was pretty patient. We've been on here an hour at least. So
yeah. We've been on
pretty quiet for an hour. That's a pretty good puppy.
Yeah, no, that is a pretty good puppy.
Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
I feel terrible now. Why don't you? I can let you go play with your puppy. Don't worry about it.
No. He heard something at the door and
okay.
He barked.
All right. Remember, I told you that about Fantilli's vest.
Yeah,
we have it. Let's bring it up.
Oh, excellent. Such a great kid.
Look at this, Shane, if you can bring it up. Adam Fantilli's vest. Look at that.
Oh, sweet.
140 names of teachers, coaches, family, advisors, people that have helped him along the way. His hockey.
It takes a village, it says at the bottom. That's pretty cool.
You know what?
He's a grounded kid.
And you know what? That is amazing because, there's a lot of car rides, And sometimes mom or dad can't bring you to every game. They can't bring you to every practice. Sometimes they have 2 kids. Sometimes they have 3 kids. Sometimes there's the same activities, different activities going on at the same time. Sometimes somebody's out of town. Sometimes somebody's working. Yeah. And you know what? You have neighbors chipping in, this, that, whatever. I have, I know of one athlete who's pro, but doesn't have his license, and mom and dad work, and one of the neighbors drives him into practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's,
I remember, my parents having to work or this or that and not being able to always take me, and I'd get, teammates, parents would drive you to the tournament, and mom and dad wouldn't think necessarily, or maybe they didn't even have the money, I don't know, but to give me, and they buy me, supper after the game and stuff like that, and you just it's times like that you look back on and you appreciate, and you can tell that Adam's a grounded kid, and he hasn't forgotten where he came from.
No, and you know what? You cheer for people like that. You cheer for people like that.
Absolutely.
Columbus
is ecstatic. I know Trevor, like he, more than once you said, you think Anaheim takes Carlson, I said, well, I know you would like that. That's for sure. And I know that Columbus is just over the top. When they, that draft debacle, when, Kevin Weeks said, and 24 Moldyke, that's exactly where I had him ranked. So I like that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good pick. And
when was the last time you spoke to Trevor?
I just got a tweet from him 5 minutes ago about Bonk.
Oh, really?
I don't have time to respond to it right now, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because we talked a lot about Bonk. He really liked Bonk too. It's funny, they had the 22nd pick, and they traded it to Philly, and Philly took Bonk. So that's kind of cool.
So talk to me about Molendijk, who goes to the Nashville Predators. It's a big pick for them because obviously they're hosting the draft.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, he's I like him more than Palika. Same size, similar skate, like just a fantastic skater. But 27 minutes a game he was playing in the playoffs for Saskatoon. Just the man. And they won 2 series. They were behind to Red Deer 3-0, Tony, and one of those rare series where the team that comes back from 3-0 down and wins it in 7.
Yeah.
That was Molendijk. He was the man. Like he guided them back. Just a minute muncher. He was fantastic at the Ivan Halenka last year, last summer. And at the time I had him close to the top 10 and loved him. And he dropped off a little bit. Didn't have a great start, didn't put up any goals, but second half of the year we started to see the potential with that kid, and I think he's going to be a good NHLer. I think Nashville made a really solid pick there.
He skates well, huh?
Oh, fantastic skater. He's top 5 among defensemen for sure. There's some good skating defensemen like Gulyayev hasn't gone yet, Simishev, Palika, him. They're kind of, and Willander, 5 of those guys, all fantastic skaters. So as you see in the playoffs too, good skating, mobile defenseman is so important. And that's why these guys are all going.
So Pekka Rinne named the pick and supposedly had a tough time reading out Tanner Molendyke.
Oh,
and
not as tough as Gary.
Yeah, and Roberto Luongo just tweets out, the attendees are having a tough night selecting picks.
Yeah, that was we were sitting there. We were sitting there and kind of it felt bad for Carey there. Jeez, like did they not whisper to him, and like he still didn't say it, you know?
I
at least Clarkey was quick about it when he when he forgot the name, you know. But that's going to go up there, you know, the top 10. You know, TSN does their top 10 moments things, and that's going to be right up there with Clarkey forgetting Giroux's name. And
look,
now Price, you know, Price is going to be a part of infamy from now on with that flub. But hey, that's okay.
I'm going to tell you this. You know what? I would imagine. First of all, I thought it was funny. That's number one. Number two, I would imagine that some people are going to think I'm inconsiderate here. But look, mistakes happen. They happen to anybody, right?
For sure.
I think it's a very unfortunate mistake, though, okay?
Yeah.
Carey Price is in Kelowna, BC. They flew him in because he's a former 5th pick overall to announce the 5th pick in the draft. That's his only job. That's all he has to do, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have to order supper last night, and he doesn't have to order breakfast tomorrow. He just has to name David Reinbacher.
Well, maybe he had memorized Michkov, and you know, when he got up there, got told, you know, no, that's not who we're taking. It just threw him for a loop. You know?
Yeah, no, I doubt that. But anyway, you know what? Carey gave us. Carey probably, you know what? Carey wanted to give us one more highlight.
Yeah,
and he did.
He wasn't done. You know, one more.
Speaking of which, you look back at that draft, 2005. Carey Price, 5th pick overall.
Off the
you saw the career he had?
Yeah.
Was that the best pick? Or would it have been Kopitar at 11? Or did LA make a better pick with Kopitar at 11?
We've had this conversation before, Tony.
I don't know if we have.
Yeah, I remember, and I explained it to you.
Okay.
Like Kopitar played in like what, Slovenia?
Slovenia, yes.
Yeah. Like there weren't a lot of scouts. Right? There weren't a lot of scouts. You know, it's not on the beaten track. Fair to say. Geez, St. Louis didn't take the goalie. Okay. Hrabel, I thought St. Louis might take Hrabel at 25 because they have three first-round picks, but they took Stenberg, who I did have in my first round right till the end when some scouting friends convinced me that he wasn't a first-rounder, so I bumped him to the start of the second. But anyway, I'll blame my scouting friends for that one.
Stenberg split the majority of the 2022-2023 season between Frölunda and their junior team. One of just 10 U18 players to record a point in the SHL in 2022-2023. Captain Sweden to a silver medal at the 2023 U18 World Championships. This coming off of the screen watching Sportsnet.
He was good. He was good in tournaments. You know, every time he was like top 5 in all these U18 tournaments, and you couldn't. But if you look at his stats in the junior, they weren't overwhelming. I don't know. He seemed to save his best for when he had on the Swedish jersey. So he, and I mean, you know, at the end of the year, you see him captain the team, and he put up good numbers again. Some guys are a little worried that he's not overly big and maybe a bit perimeter. And that's where I think the concern came in with him.
Yeah.
But certainly, you know, he's a good skater. He's got a great shot. He can create offense, and the hope will be that he can find a top, you know, he can become a top six player that can contribute on the power play. So I don't mind that pick with St. Louis, and they got Who did they take at 10?
Dvorsky.
Yeah. So that's a pretty nice. There's a nice mix there, Maybe that's 2/3 of a top two line for the Blues down the road. It's funny, two of the guys that Dvorsky has been compared to are Shen and Ryan O'Reilly, and who were St. Louis's top two centers on their Stanley Cup win. Those two guys. So I thought it almost fitting that here's the next generation, right? Coming up, and maybe, who knows, maybe those two guys help lead St. Louis to another cup someday.
Yeah. So we continue to have Carey Price with the tweet. Boy, that was embarrassing. Sorry, David Reinbacher.
Yeah, he's got to feel bad for Reinbacher there, but I mean, he said David, so I don't know if he said the club team or not. Did you say Montreal drafts David?
Yeah.
But
yeah, so
I knew who it was. Like, they weren't taking David Edstrom. It was going to be David Reinbach, but you still like to hear that.
Listen, I don't want to add to this, but because it's a mistake. It's just what's unfortunate about it is, as well, is it's David Reinbacher's one moment in his NHL in his life where he's going to be called, right? He's going to be drafted.
But how did it turn out?
Moment.
How did it turn out for Claude Giroux? Did he bounce back from that, Tony, or did it scar him for life and became a bust?
No, he carved out a real nice career for himself.
Yeah. So let's just hope. Hey, he's the Claude Giroux of defensemen. Let's just hope that's David Reinbacher's career.
Yeah. No, I hear you. San Jose pick 26 is in. By the way, I'm not surprised that they picked Will Smith with the 4th pick overall. Mike Greer from St. Sebastian's, Will Smith, St. Sebastian's.
There you go.
American kids there. I had a feeling that was going to happen, and it happened.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of that till they spoke about it at the draft there when Greer, and I thought, okay, there's that connection there. And I guess there was a connection with Hughes as well, right? I think he coached him. I think Hughes coached Smith at some point.
He coached Will Smith, yes.
Yeah. So
he coached Will Smith, knows the family, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's an assumption that, well, if he coached him, then he draft him. But, well, sometimes the opposite, right? You know the kid pretty well, and you don't, and you like someone else a little better, but. I mean, we don't know if Montreal would have picked Smith at 5, but probably. It seemed like the offense is the name of this draft for the most part. A lot of teams are. It's almost like they're picking a fantasy team.
Yeah.
Whoever they think can get the most regular season points is the highest on their list. So, Musty, yeah. I think I had Musty.
Musty.
There's Simon's pick right there.
Simo the Snake Boisvert had him at number 6 on his list.
Right. You know where I had him?
Where did you have him?
25. And he went 26.
And he went 26.
So underachiever.
That's a pretty accurate list, Grant. That's pretty
good. He slid. Yeah. That one's pretty dead on.
It's a big kid.
Yeah, but he doesn't use his size. That's the concern with him, that he's a little shy going in the corner sometimes. Like I sent you a clip there at one point this year, right?
Yeah.
And said this is why he's not going, he's not going top 10, But hey, Simon always has his favorites, and he's like me,
A 7-point game in December.
He's like me with Dvorsky.
I hear you.
I'm sticking to my guns, and so I respect Simon for not being influenced by outside.
Yeah, good for him. I like people that have their opinions and they stick to their guns. Yeah, led his team in assists, by the way.
Yeah, no,
I think he's got the no socks thing going on. Is it? I can't see from here, but he might have the no socks things going on, which is kind of cool.
I guess they're hopefully they'll replay this, right? So
yeah, got the nice.
I'll catch this later. I don't have.
No, the nice blue pants, the short pants. By the way, you see a little bit of ankle there, and
they all got short pants. That's what the wife was commenting on.
Yeah, that's the style nowadays. Yeah. There we go.
Hey, whatever works. Certainly nobody wearing bell bottoms, eh, Tony?
No, they don't have his name, by the way, on the back of the jersey. They have Sharks, so they didn't have his name, so they didn't know if he was going to be available. But
yeah, well, and they'll probably say that. Oh, we had no idea that he was going to drop. But,
the rebuild, the Montreal Canadiens rebuild. Where do you see them going with this? When you take a look at other teams that have gone down the rebuild thing and they're going down it right now, do these teams have better prospects than the Canadiens, that the Canadiens have to continue to rebuild, or can the Canadiens going forward, can they match some of these teams and the Canadiens can get out of this rebuild?
Well, it's not just prospects. I don't think with Tony, there's a pile of kids under 24 that are already on the team, right?
Yeah.
I think they have
Doc Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Kaden Gooley.
Well, all of the defensemen that they, all of those rookie defensemen who were 5 last year, right? They're all under 24, except for Kovacevic, but there's 4 under 24. Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki, Farrell, RHP. Is he 24? I think he might be 23. All these guys are under 24 years of age. And then, you've got all these kids coming, Roy and Farrell, Kapanen, who I love, Beck, Reinbacher, obviously. I think that and Newhook obviously is under 24 as well. So when you start adding it up, like they're doing similar to what Gordon did after, I think it was like a 2 or 3 years that he had multiple first round picks, and then he's okay. Now they picked up Panarin, they traded for Adam Fox. They picked up some guys similar to what Hughes is doing here. He picked up Doc, right? Who was a young draft pick. Now they pick up Newhook. So they're signaling, as far as I'm concerned, that they want to try to make the playoffs next year. They may not do it.
Yeah.
But with all the injuries they had last year and how they remain competitive, how they worked in 5 rookie defensemen.
Yeah.
How they're going to add a Newhook, who, just like these other kids under 24, they're all presumably just going to be better each year. The trajectory's on the way up.
Jerry York told me yesterday that his projection for Alex Newhook, he said he thinks he coached him for 2 years at Boston College. He said he thinks he can explode in Montreal, and he can see him picking up 60 points. Your thoughts on that projection?
Depends if if he's on the second line with Slavkovsky and Monahan, or Monahan and Anderson, or whatever, however they end up doing it, or Doc, he gets top 2 power play time. Did you see the highlights that I posted of him? Just a few of his, just showing off his speed, on a few plays yesterday. I tweeted out a 1-minute video just of a few highlights. Super quick. He's gonna be exciting, and I think a lot of it is just a matter of getting some opportunity, the offensive opportunity that he wasn't given. I talked to AJ. Oh, there's Richie there. Okay.
Yeah.
I talked to AJ Heifley from Denver Sports Avalanche, and he was saying that just they tried to make him a third line center And that's not if you talk to Jerry Rourke and others, right? That's not why they drafted him 16th overall. That he's definitely got top 6 upside. So Canadiens are going to be exciting to watch next year. They may surprise. Like if they get the goaltending, if the rookie defensemen all are more comfortable next year, Gooley looked great. Jack-Eye looked great. Harris is solid.
Gooley's the real deal.
He is, Matheson just kept getting better. Like, holy frig, he was second half of the year.
He looked like a star defenseman in the second half of the season.
He did. Savard was way better last year, so I don't expect him to fall back to what he was his first year. I think he'll be solid again next year. If Montembeault, doesn't fall back and we keep seeing the progression with his play, I don't see why the Canadiens can't be somewhere to 80 to 100 points, and in the mix.
Jonas Siegel says Leafs draft table has been a buzz ever since the Predators made the 24th overall pick. Lots of chatter between Brad Treliving and his staff. Leafs are due up at 28. By the way, if you saw images of Treliving leaving the draft floor, that's because of the deal that they had with the Calgary Flames, that up until Calgary picked, he could not be on the floor, and he can only go back on the floor after Calgary picked. It's kind of crazy, but anyway.
Yeah, optics, I guess. Not that it made any difference, but who's picking next, Tony? Do you know?
We'll bring it up right here. Hold on a second.
Because if you want to say who's picking next, I can maybe.
Shane, who's the next pick after Colorado? Shane's got the list.
Okay. I'll get a list up here too.
Toronto's coming up now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it is Toronto. Right. You just told me that, didn't you?
Yeah, Toronto's coming up now. Yeah.
I guess I should listen to you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it'd be interesting to see new regime if they keep going for small skilled guys like they kind of were in the habit of doing for a few years there. Edstrom would be a great pick here if they wanted to go that route. See who else I have on my list here that I don't know if they go with the goalie. That'd be interesting. Gavin Brindley. Love that kid's game. But he's small, and they don't need small guys anymore. I don't have too many left in my top 32. Ethan Gauthier.
Denny Gauthier's son, who's the number one touted player out of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, has not gone out yet. And for Ethan and Denny and the entire family, we'd love if it can happen in the first round. That's always pretty cool. It's always it's a privilege to get drafted in the National Hockey League, but it's a huge honor to get drafted in the first round, of course. See what happens. Treliving is on his way up.
Okay. I'm a little surprised this Fisker Molgaard, he was a kid that I thought was on the rise and played at the World Championships as well. Danish kid, really solid two-way center. I think can expect teams to start looking seriously at him at this point in the draft. Might be a player that gets picked by Toronto. They could use a good two-way defensive minded center in the system. Edstrom's the same. They're both really good two-way centers. So I guess at the end of the day, Edstrom's skating is holding him back because I thought he looked really good at the under 18s for Sweden. 6'3" center, 5 goals. He was outstanding there. But
at this point, Grant, when you're a scout, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, the best players available for the most part have gone. Do you start looking at organizational need now, or you still just look at who you think the better player is?
I think still in the first round, you're leaning towards BPA because as a rule, there's probably some guy that's 20th on your list or something and top 20 somewhere. And, he drops to there. I don't think you put too much of an emphasis on what position he plays or what your needs are. But if, your top 3 or 4 guys on your list are close and have a definite need somewhere, you lean towards the need, I think.
There we go. We'll have the pick in just a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Clark, Director of Amateur Scouting, makes the pick.
Cowan. Oh, I have Cowan 32, so I have him as a first round guy. That's I don't like that. I don't like that Toronto got Cowan because I really like him.
You like him, eh?
That's a nice pick.
So talk to us about him.
Marner, funny, they take back to London, right?
Yeah.
Last time they took a first rounder out of London, it didn't turn out too badly with Mitch
Marner, 4th overall.
Yeah. Cowan was he may have been the best player in the best forward in the OHL playoffs. Just he's got a nonstop motor. This kid never stops competing. He's not the biggest kid, but they call him Cowboy. He's a farm boy from Southern Ontario and may not be the biggest in size, but lots of sandpaper. Competes hard, and he'll fill out. And I really like that pick for Toronto. I think he'll be a middle line guy that brings energy and nonstop competitiveness. Very smart, lots of skill, good playmaker, and I think they need guys that help you at playoff time win, and that's exactly what Cowan did. I talked to Logan Mailloux a couple days ago, and I was asking him about and I was asking him about these guys, and he had nothing but good things to say about Cowan. He thinks him going in the first round is a good pick for whoever took him. So hats off to Toronto to step up. He was a real riser. Most of the year, I think a lot of lists had him after 50.
Yeah,
but he just every time you'd watch London, he was outstanding and just kept getting better. And then in the playoffs, like I say, he may have been the best forward in the OHL playoffs. So I really like that pick for Toronto. I think they need to pick up playoff type guys, and Cowan's gonna be that for him down the road.
Funny tweet from Stu Cowan who says, "I need to find out more about this kid," right? Because a Cowan was drafted in the first round, which is kind of cool. Hold on a second. Kyle Davidson sounds shocked that the Blackhawks got Oliver Moore at 19th. They hadn't even prepared for that scenario. That's how unlikely they thought it was. All right. Okay. That's coming in from Ben Pope, who covers the Chicago Blackhawks.
There's always a few of those, and I mean, for a lot of the year, Moore was, if you saw lists at midterm, there were some guys, he outplayed Will Smith at the top prospect game, the All-American top prospects game. And at that point, there was talk that maybe, certainly more competitive and better motor than Smith. So the thoughts were that maybe he's the better prospect, but as it went along, he kind of slipped a bit, just because of questions about how creative he could be. I heard comparisons to Dylan Larkin, but not without his size, right?
Larkin can fly.
Yeah, for sure. But that's a pretty good comparison. Like if he's a mini Larkin, I'll take that at 20th overall or whatever it was that he dropped, 19.
Yeah,
that's fair value. But certainly, guys.
The tweet of the night, I think, goes to Greg Wyshynski. Flyers should start selling tickets for the 2026-2027 season. That's good. Obviously, in regards to Michkov coming over.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. They got Michkov. Well, hats off to Danny Briere. He's looking at this as a 3-year rebuild. Like, he got rid of, basically giving away guys, like Hayes, geez, half the salary and 6th round pick. Like, that's just telling you that, okay, we're going to, there's going to be some growing pains here, right? For a couple of years. So I think he has a plan. Kind of blow it up. They'll get another high pick next year and the year after that. And these guys come in and start contributing at the same time that Michkov does. Hey, maybe 3-4 years down the road, the Flyers are flying again, So
pick 29 is in. We're going to find out in just a second here regarding St. Louis. Continue, Grant. Sorry about that.
Well, this might be where they take the goalie. We'll see. Certainly Binnington, I think, has fallen out of favor. He just keeps doing bonehead things all the time, and I don't know that
he was frustrated last year.
Yeah, I don't know how popular he is, and he kind of worn out his welcome a bit. But they need a goalie of the future, and 3 first-round picks at this point. I think Hrabel is good value. Like, yeah, he had that one bad game in the in the under 18s, but I mean, young goalies have bad games. Lindstein, okay.
Yeah.
Who I have very early second, so
you're there. You're only off by a couple.
Yeah, I did have him like right around 29 for longest time, and just he's 6 foot. He doesn't have a lot of offense. I mean, you love how he competes and defends, and he's good defensive defenseman, but 6 foot defensive defenseman. I kind of thought maybe he would slip out of the first round as it turned out, but that's a solid pick at 29. I'm 35, so when you're at this point of the draft, anytime you're within 10 picks, it's certainly not a reach in any regard, So, although all 3 of those Swedish defensemen that were at the U18s go in the top 30, so that's not a surprising pick, just because he was on the top pairing with Pelika in most of the tournaments this year. So
David Reinbacher says that he wants to finish his studies.
Yeah, 1 more year of school, eh?
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. They don't have to rush him along. They can take their time. He's not a player who's going to jump into the lineup right away anyway.
Well, it didn't, all of the backlash about KK, right? Rushing him over. It's funny. Like, I talked to somebody that was drafting high in that draft that they interviewed KK, and he told them that, like, they asked him what his plan was, and he said back to Assat for a year in the AHL, and then I'll be ready for the Canadiens. That's what he himself thought was the plan for how it would go. Yeah, how it would go with him.
Wow.
This was before Montreal picked him, right? This was at the combine being interviewed.
In the end, he was right, I think.
Well, maybe.
Well, I mean, he did okay, but he probably would have been. You would think that you take a little bit more time. The adage is that 1 more year, developing, or 2 more years developing never really hurt anybody, did it?
No. But I mean, he was, second line center on a semifinal team. He's been on a top 3 center on 2 teams that made it to the semifinals and finals before the age of 23. So it's not like he's been, like he developed horribly, but maybe he'd be a little further ahead if he had gone that route. Maybe he'd have a little more offensive confidence,
Yeah.
Certainly, I know Gord Miller always harped on that. But us that too, the next year was a gong show. They were last place. They replaced their coach. His dad was part of that organization. I think he got canned, and I don't know that it would have been a perfect because he had a good rookie season in Montreal, and then he hurt his knee, didn't train that summer, and then he
had a couple of
fell
injuries.
back.
Yeah,
but
he had a couple of injuries.
But the fact that he even said, like, he figured the second year he play AHL, that's the part that really, geez, why didn't they send him down early in the second year when he was struggling? And I said it, and a lot of people, like, he should be in the AHL, because he'd lost his confidence. He was a step slower than he was the year before. He needed to go down and gain some confidence, and I don't know if it was, certainly I think if you'd asked KK, he wouldn't have had a problem with it because, like I say, in these interviews, that's what he expected, that he'd be in the AHL second year. Like, I often thought, like, they don't want to hurt his pride, so they're not doing it. Bergevin doesn't want to hurt his pride by, top 3 pick being sent down to the AHL and the house. I'd be interested in knowing what the thought process was in that second year when it was pretty apparent to most of us that he should have probably been down in the AHL for more than the handful of games that he did go down.
Let's take a look at pick 30 is in the Carolina Hurricanes. So 3 more picks left in this draft, and see what happens here. And then we can say goodbye to this draft. That was a very boring draft. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's boring, man.
The no trades draft.
There's too many dinosaurs working in the National Hockey League from top to bottom. It has to change, man. It has to change. Pretty soon they're going to get passed by the MLS.
Well,
it's almost there. Trust me.
Unfortunately, with the
some markets, they already got passed.
Tony, if it was a 19 or 20-year-old draft, you'd see more movement because players would be ready to step in. But because they're not, like in the NBA and the NFL, they're drafting kids that are going to play. They're plugged in the spots that year. So there's a lot more trades up and down because you're drafting for need and you're of course, you're drafting for because that guy can play a role for you the next season. With 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids, they're often 3 to 5. Oh, there's Nadeau. Okay. Bradley Nadeau, who I had at the end of the first, and I moved him down at late.
Where'd you move him? Yeah,
38. So
it's okay.
Early second. That's like you say, anytime it's within 10 or even 15, once you get to 30, that's right in the range of what you expect.
Yeah,
5'10" and a quarter, but geez. Very similar to Newhook, had the 100-plus point season in the BCHL. Similar height. Newhook's a little stronger kid and probably a little better skater, but this kid he's got some dynamic playmaking ability. So Carolina just adds another really skilled kid that they can probably protect him with some bigger two-way guys like KK and the like, and he'll fit in nicely with the Canes.
Even the reaction from the parents is not the same. Remember, your kid gets drafted in the National Hockey League. I mean, 1 year ago, you remember what happened, right? After the 29th pick, Maverick Lamoureux.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
Arizona Coyotes.
Oh yes, that was exciting, eh, Tony?
Mom and Dad were very happy.
Yeah. Well,
Mom was
they
very
should...
happy, and I can understand Dad being very happy too. Right after, like that's wow.
Maybe they should get more ex-players to go up and announce the picks, like Clarkey and Price.
the Pittsburgh Penguins put up a tweet of their first pick actually getting a phone call from Sidney Crosby, which is always pretty cool.
Yeah, and their first pick was at 14, was it?
Yeah. So Bradley Nadeau, the Q doesn't have a player drafted yet, eh?
No, but that's Gauthier is expected to go around 30, so might see him be one of the last 2 picks here. I had him ranked 31s, and they're picking 31 now, so
would be nice.
Who's up, Tony? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. Hold on a second. Shane picks 31 and 32. Well, picks 31. That's the
Colorado.
The Colorado that the Canadiens traded. Yeah.
I was thinking that was Montreal's picks.
Yeah.
And I would have had them taking Gauthier here. So maybe Colorado.
Vegas. 32 would be Vegas, right? So
That's
Colorado
right.
and Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Colorado's had some success with some Q leaguers before. Tanguay was a heck of a pick back in the day.
Yeah, Alex Tanguay was a great pick.
Yeah, Rene Corbet.
Yeah.
Wasn't a bad little player either. So Joe wouldn't be averse to heading there.
Yeah.
Be interesting if they took somebody like Edstrom, but
Vegas has a few Quebecois players on the team.
That's true.
Carrier, Marchessault.
Yeah.
Not all of them drafted by Vegas, but obviously it was
Carrier was funny. I remember I made a road trip up to Val d'Or, and Carrier, I think he was with Cape Breton, and he played up there, and he had a terrific game.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I texted Trevor and said, this guy, this kid might be a first round draft pick. The way he played, the way he played tonight, there's no way he's going in the first round, and I'll bet you a case of beer that he doesn't go in the first round.
Who, William Carrier?
Well, okay. I mean, I'm just saying, like, he had a couple of good games.
Yeah.
No, he didn't go in the first round, Tony, but
no, he went in the second round. Yeah.
That's right. But I mean, he turned into a very useful, good NHL player.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It wouldn't have been a bad pick to take him at the end of the first round.
He's been a Vegas Golden Knight for the last 6 years.
As it turned out,
it's on their fourth line of a team that won the Stanley Cup.
Oh yeah. No, plays a heavy game, they just flashed it, but it went away.
I like Nicholas Roy a lot, by the way.
Pardon me?
Gulyayev.
Oh, Gulyayev. My goodness. Oh, my goodness. So they've got Girard, Makar, and Gulyayev now. And Byron. Good luck trying to catch those guys with the puck.
Talk to us about this player.
Well,
represented by Dan Milstein, you can tell, who was just there next to him, his agent, who also represents Sergachev.
Just dynamic. Oh my goodness, what a skater! I fell in love with him early in the year, looking at, because all you could do was video scout these Russian kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he just flies up the ice. Makar, Girard, and Gulyayev. My goodness.
The kid is happy, man. The kid is happy. Look at him.
I'm glad he went, because I had him in my first. I had him at one point, Tony. I had him top 5.
Really?
I see him as maybe being the most dynamic defenseman in this draft class.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that after the Canadiens drafted Reinbacher 5th.
But he's 5'10" and he's Russian, Tony, just like Michkov.
That's right.
Two
so we're not
strikes.
only going to have one Russian Santos, we're going to have two of them, Michkov and Gulyev.
Well, this kid is the closest.
Turning out to be a night to forget.
I called him the Russian McCagg, and now.
But yeah, while we're at it, perché no? You call him the Russian McCagg?
That's what I called him, the Russian McCagg, and now they've got both. They've got the Canadian McCagg and the Russian McCagg.
This night keeps on getting better and better. And to think that I had this night circled on my calendar since the beginning of the season, and now I got to hear this. Wow.
How many guys left in my first round? I'll have a quick scan here. Gauthier, Brindley, who's 5'8". That's why he hasn't been picked.
2.5 minutes for Vegas. They're on the clock. Final pick of round one.
Edstrom, who again, I'm not surprised. And then the Molgaard. Okay, so 4 guys left in my top 32 that haven't been picked. So that's 28 out of 31, I guess.
Yeah.
Taken. That's a lot higher than normal. So that's. I've had some drafts where it's 23, 24 guys that I have in my first round that get taken. So as far as being accurate with where NHL teams pick, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
With that number.
That's very good. It's very good. It's excellent, actually, Grant.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, and Perreault. So it's 20. Okay. The goalie. So I think 27, which is excellent. Like I'm happy with.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, this last guy will be somebody in my top. Raykov's got to be Sturback, Haltonen, Gauthier.
Yeah.
They're all possibilities. The goalie, Edstrom. Man, if they end up with Edstrom, because
here's the final pick. Here we go.
He reminds me of Stone, Edstrom. So if Vegas ended up taking him, I'd be, McCagg and the Russian McCagg, and then Stone and the Swedish Stone. We'll see.
Can you believe it? 6 years in, they won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I know.
Fans have been trying for 30.
Flyers did it in 7.
Amazing.
Yeah. They Flyers came in 67 and they won 73, 74.
All right. So here we go. Pick number 32 and the final pick of round one.
Exciting NHL draft coverage.
Connor Bedard, Leo Carlson, Adam Fantilli, Will Smith, David Reinbacher, the top 5.
I get the impression that you're not completely enthralled with the David Reinbacher pick. Would that be?
No. Anytime you have a chance to get the best defenseman in the draft, you take it.
Yeah.
For me, as long as those other guys don't score 50 or 40, they got the right pick.
Okay.
But if those guys score 50 or 40, I'm always a guy, Grant. I like offense. I like offensive players.
Well,
I like goal scorers. I pay to watch goal scorers. I don't pay to watch defensemen play 25 minutes a game.
I can't believe that they got the Swedish Mark Stone. So
but I
back
can
to back,
understand.
we got the Russian McCagg and the Swedish Mark Stone going to those teams.
Wow, there you have it.
That's kind of cool. I'm envious of Vegas. They win the cup and then they get my favorite sleeper pick, who was top 15 on my list.
Is he your favorite sleeper pick, really? Eh?
I had him 14th. So
wow.
So that's
so he plays like Mark Stone.
He does. He always gets a stick on the puck. Since I started scouting, I've never seen anybody that just turns the puck over, always gets 6'3", uses his size, his anticipation. So smart. He's I love this pick, and I'm envious of Vegas for win the cup, and then they get my favorite.
I want to thank Kyle Woodlief of the Red Line Report, Byron Bader of Hockey Prospecting, Marc-André Perreault of TVA Sport. I especially want to thank you, Grant. You were with me now for like almost 2 hours. So kind of you to give your time on a very important night for our podcast like tonight. That's it, folks. The NHL Draft 2023 is over. If you were expecting a big trade, it didn't happen. It happened yesterday, or a couple of them happened. If you were expecting Michkov with the Canadiens, it didn't happen. They got David Reinbacher, who on most people's list is the number one touted defenseman in the draft. And he's a right-handed defenseman. He's got good size, and we'll talk about that over the next couple of days and more, I'm sure. Unrestricted free agency is around the corner. It opens up on July the 1st. I want to thank our partners, Energy Transportation Group, Playground, La Bittt Tibi, and Murphy Clinic. Grant, you have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Tony?
Yeah.
Tony? I think, if I'm not mistaken, you said the draft is over?
Well, no, pardon me. The round 1 is over.
Okay.
Round 2 to 7.
Yes.
Goes tomorrow morning, starting at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And we'll bring you the Sick Podcast tomorrow night at the same time again at 7 p.m. to wrap up the draft and recap everything. But Grant, thanks for correcting me. The draft is not over. Round 1 is over.
And the
Round
Habs still have 8 picks or something like that. So,
you know what?
Maybe they'll get some offensive players.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. Thank you, Grant. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, the Canadiens' next pick is going to be pick 69. And, I don't know how you mess up pick 69, but I hope they don't, because it usually, it's usually, pretty good. That's it for me. I think I've said enough. All right. Okay. For Shane Gaumont at Master Control, thank you all for watching tonight. We had huge numbers. I'm not surprised, because you are my sick army. You are my sick community. We'll be back tomorrow night. Once again, special time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, to recap rounds 2 to 7, to recap the entire draft. Maybe some of those trades come tomorrow. We'll find out what the Montreal Canadiens will do with the rest of their draft. We'll find out if they go after a goalie. We'll find out if they trade for a goalie. Whatever is going to happen tomorrow, we're going to talk about it tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Once again, thank you all for watching on what was a 3-hour and 42-minute podcast. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I hope you did too. For all of you, my sick army, my sick community, thank you very much. For Yellow and Sammy in Orlando, Florida, with Mickey Mouse at a convention for families of SMA, their Cavallaro, I'm Marinaro.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. La Vida TB, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.